What's up, everyone? Normal Mac Show. Your favorite, greatest, bestest, populist, conservative streamer's back for another fantastic show that I didn't know if I would be doing this week. Oh, I didn't make the bed behind me, so I'm going to look like a chump. Oh well, life goes on. Hope you all had a great day. I know I did. It's going to be a fantastic show tonight. Now, all the other shows I've ever done have sucked, and tomorrow's show will suck, but tonight, you caught me on a good night. This is going to be one of the rare good shows. I don't know. This show will probably suck too. Anyways, thanks for being here. I'll happily take your money. If you send me enough money, maybe someday I'll have a show that doesn't suck. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Anyways, it's great to be here. I hope everyone's doing really well. Having much more fun streaming this week than last week. It was some morbid stuff. You know, now that the lefties have got a temporary boost, throwing off the albatross that was Joe Biden, and they feel like they got a news cycle that's beneficial to them, they could stop calling for heinous things to happen to all Trump supporters or celebrating their deaths, etc., etc. So isn't that nice? That's nice that we live in that world. We can have fun again. Yay, great. A lot going on in the news today. It seems like we get a month's worth of news on a daily basis now, so there's so much that I'll forget everything that I was reading earlier today. Some crazy stuff. We have the resignation of Cheadle. Much as I said would happen yesterday, she would eventually have to fall on the sword. I assumed it would be quite quickly, given her disastrous performance yesterday. Predictable. She'll get some cushy golden parachute. Don't worry for her. She'll be all right. And now they'll say, oh, okay, everything's done. We wrap that up nice and tight. And I assure you that the establishment Republicans won't want to go much further. They'll shake their finger and then continue to fund the FBI and the Secret Service and etc. to the tune of everything they want. Always the same. Always the same. Nothing ever changes. Nothing. So, I wanted to talk about our esteemed, distinguished Vice President Kamala Harris a little today. Am I saying that right? Kamala? Now, I'll admit to being a little subconscious in how I pronounce her name. I don't really know what the correct pronunciation is, if I'm honest. I just remember growing up the Ugandan giant, wasn't that his nickname? Kamala, the wrestler. He's a big dude that wore like face paint, and I think he wrestled Hulk Hogan and what have in an arc. His name was Kamala. I think he was really just a black guy from the United States, but that was an easy way to have a gimmick back in those days of wrestling. Like, if you looked like you could be any other ethnicity, it's like, oh, you're a foreigner, just don't speak English. There, that's your gimmick. Like, you know, oh, you look like you could be Russian, grow a handlebar mustache, now you're a Russian guy. I went to this indie promotion, oh my gosh, this had to be 15, 20 years ago. And it was like a metal show, and then they had a like independent wrestling federation that wrestled outside it. And I think it's interesting. I like wrestling anyways. I don't watch it much anymore, but I like sort of the storytelling aspect of it. Obviously, like the athleticism's cool, I guess, but like the idea that it's everybody knows that it's not real, but you still all voluntarily give into the kayfabe sort of. And I enjoy that. I enjoy watching sort of the good storytellers at it. So one of the things that's weird is most of the people view wrestling like you would view like a movie or a television show or whatever. So like, even if you're not familiar with wrestling, probably everyone here is familiar with like long-running television show. Like take something like a drama like Breaking Bad or The Wire, and you have hours upon hours and hours to give little details into characters. So oftentimes there's a lot of great character building and it makes people multidimensional. How do you set up a wrestling promotion where you know 95% of the audience is never seen you and will never see you again? But you still have to tell a story. There still has to be a good guy and a bad guy, right? Each match, you have to get the audience invested. They got to cheer for someone. Well, that's easy if you're watching, you know, Breaking Bad, or if you're watching WWE, you know those characters. You know Hulk Hogan, he's the good guy, or if he's Hollywood Hogan, he's the bad guy, whatever. But what if it's just totally random people? How do you... So, like, the very first match I was at that show, it was the first independent wrestling show I was at. So the first guy comes out and he's the heel. He's the bad guy. Well, how do you know he's the heel? Because he's just some guy in like shorts and wrestling boots and he comes jogging out. How would you know? Well, he just flipped off the crowd. That's how he did it. Effective. The crowd's like, boo! But it's great. It's like, oh yeah, that'll get you some heat. He just comes out, you suck! Flips him off. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, oh, it's very interesting. And then the other guy's just like, this guy sucks. I love this place. That's his angle, He's just another guy in shorts that's just like, but he's clapping, high-fiving the crowd. So he must be the good guy. Anyways, I bring it up because I was talking about Kamala. There was a guy, I forget what his name was, but he was basically like the Iron Sheik. His gimmick, he came out and got the mic and he talked in the worst accent ever. And he was just like, oh, I'm like with the mullahs in Iran and in OPEC in Saudi Arabia, and I'm going to raise the price of gasoline to $10 a gallon. And the crowd's just like, boo! And he's just like, screw you Americans, we're going to price you out of the oil market. And I thought it was a hilarious gimmick. Anyways, after the show, the dudes sort of hang around, like they're hanging around the bar. So I end up sitting at the bar next to this, whatever his name was, this sheik guy, who looks Arabic or whatever, and he has the mustache and whatever. He's sort of dark skinned. And I talked to him, and his profession was he's a substitute teacher in the Chicago area. And he just takes time off to do wrestling. He's like the nicest guy in the world. No accent, just a regular dude, But he's like, oh, you're looking for a character to have fun and play. I happen to be dark skinned. And they're like, what if you grew a mustache and you could have like the Middle Eastern gimmick? And he was like, okay. It's great. It's a great gimmick though, because it's like, oh, I'm the bad guy. What would a crowd hate? I know. I'll raise the price of their gasoline. I thought it was hilarious. But it's always a sucker for that. Anyways, there's my Kamala story. So we're going to talk about Kamala Harris, not the wrestler. We'll get off wrestling. But if you ever get a chance to go to an indie wrestling show, I think it's worth it. Just for that, just for the character work. See if you can tell, like, okay, how's the next two people going to tell us who's the good guy? Who am I supposed to cheer for and who am I not? And then if you know a little about wrestling, their moveset oftentimes is whether or not they're a good guy, a face, or a bad guy, a heel. So the heel will be wrestled different. The heel usually calls the match. It's very interesting. But anyways, people will talk about Kamala Harris. So there's going to be some black pills here, I think, today for my audience, for people that are supporting Trump. Because I think people are making a mistake in thinking that Kamala Harris will be easy to beat. Now, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I don't think so. I think maybe she was one of the worst choices to replace Biden. But anyone replacing Biden is going to be good. Biden was the absolute best possibility for Trump to face. And so if you're watching and you're a Democrat, I was predicting Biden would still be Trump because of shenanigans that would occur. Is anyone doubting so far my predictions? I mean, they basically just engaged in a soft coup to force Biden out to install Kamala Harris. And within like 24 hours, the entire apparatus was behind her. Like the entire. And now the news cycle that everyone was saying, all the Biden supporters were saying, it's not fair. The news is being slanted. It's not even being journalism. It's just going after Biden. Now they're all like, oh my God, did you see the way she smiled? Oh my God, she's just the most impressive person ever. Everything she does is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And that'll be the media cycle for the next 6 months. We'll see how that plays out. But there will also be scandals against Trump, and Trump will probably get sentenced to jail if they think that'll benefit them in this New York case, if that still occurs. And we're a long, long way out. So first, let's talk about polling. Let's do that. I think we could start there. There's always a risk in accepting any polls anyways. If you didn't learn that in 2016, then nothing will ever teach you that. I think that oftentimes the polls are directionally true. So what you could see is if there's movement in a large group of polls in one direction, even if what they're saying isn't totally accurate, oftentimes that movement is accurate. So for example, let's say the polls say Biden's 4 points ahead collectively. 100 polls say that. that doesn't necessarily mean Biden's 4 points ahead, but whatever. Now, if all those polls start to shift and say now Biden's 8 points ahead, it might not be that Biden's 8 points ahead, but that shift is probably occurring. There probably is more momentum for Biden. Not always the case, but oftentimes that's what I think happens. So the end result of what the polls say, oftentimes not completely accurate, but the shift, the direction that it's going, seems sometimes to be something that you could gain insight from. The other thing is the polls seem to always expand and then contract when you get closer to the election. So oftentimes, almost every poll, when you get close to the election for a presidential election, will be within the margin of error, which makes sense because almost all elections in this country are going to be very close. I don't think that you're going to see a candidate win, at least a Trump or a Republican. I don't think you'll see them win nationally by 8 to 10 points. I just don't think that that's in the cards right now. Because I think that the manipulations of algorithms and the news cycle and everything is so dramatic that it would be tough to be able to do that. Now, it might go the other way if just someone like Trump's so loathsome and they do a great job of all their propaganda plus have a good candidate. So, anyways, that's a caveat on polls in general. But to the extent that we do look at polls, I think it is a huge mistake to sort of try to analyze what the polls are going to be in the next couple weeks. Now, I mean that from any side. If there's a poll that comes out and says Trump's up 11 on Kamala Harris, I don't believe that at all. If there's a poll that comes out and says Harris is up 5 points on Trump, I don't believe that at all. If there's a poll that comes out and says they're tied, I still don't believe it. And the reason is this. We have no idea what's going to occur once it settles in that it looks like Kamala Harris is the new candidate. Now, I have said for a long time that the best day that a candidate has when running for a national office is their first day. And that's true of Kamala Harris as well. So there's this honeymoon phase. Oh, new and exciting, and old crusty Joe Biden's out. No, we're excited. And there hasn't really been in the ether like a deep look at the things she said, the policies she's advocated for, etc. Even though she's well known, those things will come to surface. For example, she's going to have to answer for her appearance on Stephen Colbert during the George Floyd riots when she was like, basically, this should occur until the election. Or promoting a bail fund after people lit a police station on fire. Or, for example, in swing states like Pennsylvania, she said she wants to ban fracking. I assure you that's not a winning argument in Pennsylvania. That's not to say she'll lose Pennsylvania, but that's not an argument that'll fly really well here. Talked about wanting to have a Green New Deal. That's red meat to the left, to the Democrat base. Those are the arguments you want to advocate for in the primary, to win the primary. But that doesn't do so hot with a more centrist, moderate audience. Well, it's not just the media. It'll be that Trump's team will be putting stuff out there. And it is true that the media is going to be incredibly biased and propagandist for Kamala Harris. But there will still be centrist, moderates, etc. that haven't decided on their vote yet that will get access to this information. So generally speaking, most of our national elections now are ran based on opposition to the opponent. So most people that vote for Kamala Harris are going to be voting against Trump. That's what's going on. And so it's not like, oh, we need time to have her record set in so that people really like her. It'll be the opposite. So you have that. So you get this initial honeymoon bump. But then you're weighing that against other things when it comes to polling. Like Trump certainly probably has some sort of bump from the surviving the assassination attempt. And that will eventually, all of these things, right? When they initially happen, these actions, that's going to be the largest the bump is. So, for example, Biden's disastrous debate performance, like initially following that, it's like, oh, shit. And then it tampers down some. Now, it clearly still had an effect, but it did tamper down some until he does something like that again, and then it goes back up. The same's true of this assassination attempt. So you have the newness of Kamala Harris with still the newness of this assassination attempt. So how will that play out? Will they both sort of escape people's minds as we get closer to? And then, in addition to that, I think that there were probably a lot of... Understand, there was There's probably, my guess is around a 50-50 split of the people, the actual voters that wanted Biden to stay in versus those that wanted him removed. If you're one of those voters that like Biden and you see every day the news cycle saying polling showing that Biden can't win, that some other candidate would have a better chance, and then you get called to do a poll and you say, yeah, I'm voting for Biden, and they say, okay, well, would you vote for Harris over Trump? You might say no, because you want the polls to show Biden has the best chance. So you might have had a protest sort of, nah, I wouldn't. Biden's my man, that's it. But my guess is almost all Biden voters, not all, but the vast majority of them, are voting against Donald Trump, and they will vote for Kamala Harris. So maybe there were people in that polling that said, no, I won't vote for Harris, that will end up doing so. So I think that will have an effect on the polling. So I don't know. I don't know what the polling will level out to. I would wait 2 or 3 weeks and then see where we're at. And then, of course, this isn't some deep thought or anything, but everyone knows this. The news cycle moves so fast, who the hell knows what will happen within 2 or 3 weeks. Something drastic could change. So there were polls being released that showed everything from Trump up 6 nationally against Harris, up in every swing state. And then I saw an Ipsos poll that was released today that said Harris was up 2. And it's funny how everyone wants to push the poll that shows their side winning. It's like, I'm more excited for the poll that shows Harris up 2. Now, I'll talk about why I think Trump's supporters are underestimating Harris here in a moment. But I do honestly think that Harris is probably, other than Joe Biden, the most beatable candidate. Make no mistake about this. If the internal polling of the Democrats show that Kamala Harris can't win, they'll boot her for another candidate. It's that simple. They don't care. They don't care at all. It's not about the will of the voters of the Democratic Party. They don't care about that. All of these are interchangeable cogs. Joe Biden was just an empty suit for the establishment. Kamala Harris, she's an empty suit in a different way. She doesn't have cognitive decline, but she'll change her opinion on a whim to whatever the establishment tells her to say. If she can't be it, then there'll be someone else that will be put in there. Same difference. It's actually an incredible advantage. Think about it. What if, to counter Kamala Harris, the Republicans right now would be like, you know what, it's not going to be Trump. It's going to be Ron DeSantis. And Trump will endorse him. Think of it, you would be able to say, who is the ideal candidate to go up against our opponent? That's the advantage the Democrats have, because they don't give a shit about the will of their voters. They don't care at all. They'll install whoever. And they'll admit that. They say, well, it's all about the best chance to win. That's what it is. It's not the will of the voters. So I say good. I hope the polling, for 2 reasons, says that Kamala's kicking ass. 1, because then she's likely to stay in as the candidate. And 2nd, hopefully that motivates people, because in 2020 and 2022, all I kept hearing about was this giant red wave and how Trump was going to dominate. And I, especially in 2020, was like, are you kidding me? It felt like Trump people were making the same mistake that Hillary people made in 2016. And I didn't want to see that occur again. Oh, we're up 8 in the polls. No problem. Easy ramp up. So, good news for us, I think. And also good news because the psychopathic left-wingers that can't decide whether or not they think that the attempt on Trump's life should have succeeded or not, maybe if they think Kamala's winning, they'll be less likely to say that sort of shit and, advocate for violence and whatever, which is also good. That's good. You have to treat them like toddlers and babies having a tantrum. No, here's some good news. Here's a little good news. There. Now, don't say that you want everyone to be harmed. It's okay. We don't need to use violence, everyone. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. You'll be okay. That's how you have to treat them. Oh, yeah. Yeah, man, I'll talk to Lactoid, of course. I love Lactoid. I'll reach out to Lactoid and Good Logic, and then hopefully I'd like to talk to Viva Frey and Robert Barnes at some point, too. I think Rakita's probably off the radar at this point. It's got some legal troubles of his own. But, yeah, absolutely, I'd talk to Lactoid. He messaged me and asked if I was debating Destiny, and I said no, and he was like, okay. And then I never was like, why, what's up? You know, he probably asked for a reason. Anyways, yeah, I'll reach out to Lactoid, absolutely, I like him. So, that's the polling. I wouldn't get too excited. And I mean that. If the polls come out tomorrow and say Biden or Harris is up 15, I wouldn't get too excited about it. We'll see. We'll see where we're at a month from now. So, that's just my opinion on the polling. Why is Harris better than Biden? Well, I think people are underestimating her. Not because I think she's a strong candidate. I don't. I think she's a terrible candidate. I don't think... You know, there are different ways to be a good candidate. One of them is to have a likable personality. I don't think she really has a likable personality. Now, they're going to try to gaslight you that she does, and they're going to try to meme it into existence. But we've seen in the past, the more she gets in front of the public eye, even in the Democratic Party, there's just not a lot of enthusiasm for her character, for her, you know, personality. Okay, but that's not everything. Is she a policy wonk? Someone who's got, like, really fantastic policy? No, not really. I mean, unfortunately, when people call her a DEI hire, I know that they're trying to make a hullabaloo out of this, but it's true. She was picked for her skin color and her gender. Now, I would say that no matter what, like, let's say it was Michelle Obama that was chosen. I think Michelle Obama is a fantastic speaker and has a ton of charisma. I don't give a shit if you all hate me for saying I don't like Michelle Obama, but she's a great speaker. So was Barack Obama. They were. Both of them have charisma. So had it been Michelle Obama that was tasked to be Biden's VP, would that be a DEI hire? Well, yes, technically that she was hired because of her skin color and gender, but she's also qualified in that she brings something to the ticket. I don't think Kamala Harris does. Other than her identity. So to me, that's why people were saying she's a DEI hire. But it's not something I'm focusing on. We'll talk about that too. Sort of the way that people are going after Kamala Harris and what's legitimate and what's illegitimate and what's smart and what's not. We'll talk about all that. So I don't think Kamala Harris is particularly strong, but she's better than Biden. Because the strengths that Biden had over her, that he is, for better or worse, you might agree or disagree, was considered this calming statesman. He was the VP under Obama, which largely the Democrats liked for 8 years. He'd been there for a long time. He was considered to have certain issues that he supposedly was good at, like foreign policy. And he was considered sort of likable, like he was moderate. But the problem is, all of that goes out the window with his cognitive issues. All of it. Like, experience doesn't matter if you don't know where you're at. You could have the most experienced auto mechanic in the world working on your car. But if he has dementia, it's not going to do you any good. If he's incapable of cognitively functioning to repair your car. So that puts all of Biden's strengths are out the window. And it's a huge detriment at that point. It's huge. Kamala's better than that. Anyone's better than that. Pretty much. Sort of like, you know, people that, you know, a murderer or something. So she's better than that. She'll do better than Biden would have, in my estimation. And I don't understand where people are feeling otherwise. She also checks the right identity politics boxes. There will be enthusiasm for a potential first black woman president. There will. There will be more people that vote for that than vote against it. Put it that way. She's new, even though she's not, but she is. She's young, which goes along with being new, or younger. And so there's enthusiasm around that. Roman says, Rob, wouldn't we want Joe Manchin as the running nominee for the DNC, that some super far leftist is a contingency just in case Trump loses the election? Already he's a moderate, not a progressive. No, it's irrelevant to me. I don't give a shit if it's a moderate or a far progressive. A moderate probably has a better chance to win and beat Trump. But the problem with a moderate is they're still going to listen to everyone that's in the deep state and tells them what to do. So they're not going to say, fire all the police, ACAB. They won't come out and say that. But if their handlers at the CIA and NSA say, fuck it, fire all the police, ACAB, they'll say, yes, sir. So what's the difference at the end? The policies will end up being the same because they're going to listen to their overlords. Joe Manchin doesn't have the strength to say, no, I'm going to do it my own way. I don't care what all of these people in these institutions are telling me I have to do. That's my take on it. So I think that Harris is more competitive than Biden, and I already thought Biden would win because manipulation of algorithm, the mainstream media setting the narrative, ballot harvesting, questionable things that occur on the day of the election, etc. So if I thought Biden was going to win, and I think Kamala Harris will stand a better chance than Biden, then clearly I think Kamala Harris is going to win. Joseph says, surprised I'm saying this, but I think so. How am I coping? Does that word mean the same thing? Coping do you think that I'm like, oh shit, we're doomed, Kamala Harris? Is that what you think? Is that what you mean by coping? Again, I've been telling my audience that Trump, with Biden, who was the best possible person for him to face, had a 5% chance to beat Biden for a long time. That's what I've been saying. Then after the disastrous debate performance and the assassination attempt, I said maybe 10%. So I don't understand what my cope would be. That I'm now saying Kamala lowers Trump's chances from 10% to like 5% again? Or 7%, something like that. I don't know what the cope is there, but okay. And I'm giving you reasons that I think Kamala is not very good, but better than Biden. I don't know what the cope is, but okay. Now, what are the moral and ethical ways that you could attack Kamala Harris? And what are the strategic ways that you could attack Kamala Harris? My policy is this. When it comes to people in the public eye, particularly in the public eye that you're running for a national office like presidency, pretty much everything's on the table. Personally, I don't like mocking their spouses unless the spouses really put themselves out there. So I'm not in favor. I was never in favor. You'll be hard pressed to find me making Michelle Obama jokes. I'm not saying it's never happened, but it's not something I did. I always thought it was kind of whatever. Same with Melania jokes. I think you shouldn't make fun of their kids, particularly if they're still kids. Once they're adults, like Don Jr., Hunter Biden, whatever, fine. Not my cup of tea, but whatever. But if you want to make fun of their appearance, or you want to make fun of their sexual proclivities, or you want to make fun of their intelligence, all of it's on the table. I'm not really doing that. I'm not going to sit here and make Willie Brown jokes that much, or... Again, I'm not saying you're a bad person for doing it. Go for it. I'm not even saying that doesn't have strategic value. It can. Certainly, they do that to Trump, right? I mean, one of the arguments he banged a porn star. That's like one of the arguments they make all the time. If that's on the table, then why isn't talking about Kamala Harris how she got into her foray into politics? I just personally think that's not for me. Again, I'm not saying, is it possible that if you go through thousands upon thousands of hours of me, do you think how many thousands of hours do you think I've streamed? Let's say I've been doing it for 5 years, let's say 3 hours a stream on average, 4 nights a week. So that's 12 hours a week for... Yeah. 200 weeks? Yeah, I probably have over 1,000. Is it possible that if you went through that, you would find like, oh, he made a Michelle Obama joke? Yeah, it's possible. But I think people that watch me see that I'm normally not doing it. And it's not because I don't like offensive jokes. That's not it. I don't know. Feel like everyone's doing it, slow-hanging fruit, whatever. Again, I'm not morally upset about it. I'm not. As to the strategic value of it, I mean, it plays into the Democrats' hands. That's, my estimation is that there are people that are going to vote for Trump, and then there are people that are going to vote for whoever the Democrat is, Kamala, Biden, whatever, right? And then you're trying to get these people in between. And those people in between are going to be like, listen, ultimately what it comes down to is I don't really like Trump. I think he's boorish. I don't think he's presidential. He might be a danger to democracy, whatever. There's going to be something like that. But I think the country was doing better under him than it was under the Biden-Harris administration. So those are the people you're going to have to convince. Is saying, oh, Kamala Harris, she had to sleep her way to the top. Yuck, yuck. Is that convincing those people? I think no. I think that probably goes the other way. Oh, yes, this is who Trump and his supporters are. What he would say, Roman, is different than what he would do. You tell me right now, is Joe Manchin cutting the budget for the FBI? Is Joe Biden going to hold the FBI accountable? Is Joe Manchin going to call out the corrupt press that will no doubt be in his pocket? Is he going to do that? Is Joe Manchin going to stop funding foreign wars? Is he going to do that? Is he going to stand up to the State Department and the intel agencies? Anyone in the chat, type a 1 if you think Joe Manchin would stand up to those groups, or type a 2 if you think, like any Democrat or establishment Republican, he would cave into those groups. I could not disagree with you more, Roman King. Yeah, you're right. He'll be intelligent enough to not say, everyone on the MAGA side are complete Do you think Joe Manchin's going to pardon nonviolent January 6 people? No, he's not going to do that. You think Joe Manchin's going to announce that January 6 was blown immensely out of proportion? No, he's not going to do that. So, yeah, I mean, if what you're looking for is, I really want a president on the other side that will literally do nothing, that would continue to support all the corrupt shit we see, but he won't call me deplorable, then yeah, I guess Joe Manchin's your guy. I choose to not want that. And the fact that Joe Manchin would probably be seen as more moderate to the voter and have a better chance to beat Donald Trump than Kamala Harris, no, I would think for me, the announcement of Joe Manchin as a candidate would be worse news for me, even though I don't think Trump will do much against those institutions anyways. At least there's a chance. I don't see any chance with Joe Manchin. In my estimation, maybe I'm wrong, and I don't really know Joe Manchin very well, but and Sparky's right as well. It's a moot point. That would be like saying, but Rob, let's game out. What if Ron Paul came out of retirement and ran as a Republican? Yeah, I guess it's interesting to talk about. The chance of it's happening 0, just like the chance of Joe Manchin running for president and getting the Democrat nod at this point 0. So, but just to game it out, no. I don't. Anyways, so, there are people, Kamala Harris, and using sex to get into politics, or Kamala Harris being a DEI hire, or Kamala Harris is weird, she cackles. I don't think any of that's out of bounds or morally corrupt or anything. I don't. I never tag people in Discord. I don't even know how to do it. There's supposedly a bot that's supposed to say every time I'm streaming, there's a Discord channel. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Sparky. I don't know how effective those lines of attack are to the moderate voter. For me, people are like, well, what can they attack Kamala Harris on? An awful lot. First off, the entire record of the Biden-Harris administration. The reason that Trump was doing well even before the debate was because, despite what the Democrats try to gaslight you into believing, people aren't happy with the direction the country's gone. They're not happy with the foreign policy decisions that have led to the world basically being on fire. They're not happy with the border, and they're not happy with the economic situation. They're not. And Harris owns that. And that should be a big focus. If you didn't like the Biden economy and foreign policy and border, you're not going to like the Harris one. She was right there. In fact, given what we now know about Biden, that he basically wasn't all there, Harris probably has more of a hand in it than we thought. So that's number one. Number two, she was tasked specifically early in the Biden-Harris administration. What was the big thing that she was tasked with doing? And it has nothing to do with using sex to get into politics as corrupt. Is it corrupt? I don't know. I guess. Is buying your way into politics corrupt? I guess. It's not what I'm saying. I said it's fair game. You could talk about it. I don't know what the strategic value is. Yeah, she was the border. She was the one that was going to solve the border situation. So the one thing as vice president she was tasked at spearheading was a absolute catastrophic failure. She was tasked with one thing, and it was an abysmal failure. That seems to be a good place to start attacking policy prescriptions that she's advocated in the past, such as Green New Deal, banning fracking. That particularly won't play well in swing states. Excuse me. Her record as a prosecutor. Now, I think it's a mistake to say, oh, she locked too many people up. What you should instead say is the people she locked up, she did so corruptly. Or, rather, that it proves that she's a bias hack. Because when she's talking about corruption in the law enforcement system, and then you see that she was locking people up for weed and truancy while she was smoking weed, then later when it benefited her politically, she's literally promoting bail funds to bail out rioters that are attacking federal buildings. Why was the border deal shut down? Now, it's a great argument that Democrats want to make. So what Democrats will do, this is the Democrats, so thank you for being here, young Serpent. Either you're playing devil's advocate or you're a Democrat. So here is the Democrats' argument. In 2021, there's no border crisis. It's cheap fakes. In 2022, there's no border crisis. It's cheap fakes. In 2023, there's no border crisis. It's cheap fakes. In 2024, there's a border crisis. It's Trump's fault. The bill that was passed was not a bill that would have done anything significant. In fact, it entrenched several things into the law that would have made sure that an incoming administration would not be able to secure the border. The truth is that Joe Biden and the Democrats ran on basically making it not a crime to cross the border illegally, and they ran on the promise of giving all sorts of benefits to illegals that came here, which predictably led to illegals coming here, particularly after Joe Biden rescinded a bunch of executive orders that encouraged those illegals to come here. Then once he realized that it wasn't polling well for him, they actually put forth a bill to go against the Republican bill that was passed out of the House that would have actually done something. But the Democrats didn't want to vote in the Senate for the Republican bill that would have actually had real measures that would have curbed immigration, and instead voted for a bill that basically would have allowed up to 5,000 illegals a day to come across the border. It also had all sorts of provisions in it, like you could only enforce it up to 180 days a year. There were provisions in it that said basically that there were special exemptions that would be allowed to be had by the Department of Homeland Security. That would mean Mayorkas, and we already saw what his policy was, basically letting everyone in that wanted to come in. So no, that border bill was just a red herring. One, it was just done for purely cynical political reasons in order to actually cover up the fact that they encouraged and allowed an open border to occur for 3 years. Second, it entrenched a bunch of bad stuff that would make the border worse. One of the worst things that it did was guarantee millions upon millions of dollars to the very NGOs that are funding the illegals coming across the border. So yes, the Republicans were correct to reject it and say, instead, we want our bill that would actually do something. Now, I understand that they're good at narrative pushing, and so they've tried to gaslight the American people, just like they tried to gaslight the American people. Trust us, Joe Biden doesn't have cognitive decline. Those are cheap fakes. That was what they sold us for 4 years. That was all cheap fakes. That was a lie that Joe Biden had cognitive decline. He's sharp as a tack behind the scenes. That's what they said, right? Turns out that was a lie. Just like they lied to you for 3 years and said there's no crisis at the border. Mayorkas himself would say that many times when he was brought in front of Congress. And then when they cynically try to say, oh shit, yeah, let's slapdash something together that actually does nothing and entrenches the same corruption that we want, but we'll say, oh, it's a border thing. It gives money to the border. Therefore, that would have solved everything. And the Republicans didn't want it. It's all Trump's fault. It's Trump's fault. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not going to work with people that are remotely paying attention to what occurred. When you even have the Border Security Union saying they would never vote for Joe Biden or the policies that he instituted, even though Biden falsely claimed on this debate stage that they supported him, kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. So yes, the border is the Democrats' fault, despite what they want to tell you. Imagine that at the end of the Trump presidency, right? If Trump would have been like, oh yeah, and here's a bill that'll fund the NRA. It's going to give billions of dollars to the NRA, but it gives free health care to everyone. And like the Democrats are like, no, we're not going to pass that bill of funding the NRA. Like what? And then Trump said, well, there you go. Health care, that's our issue. Democrats voted against health care. There you go. And they were like, but there's a bunch of loopholes. This actually would have just helped the rich people. No, Democrats are against health care. There you go. But Mr. President, we argued for 4 years to do something about health care, and no one Republican would do. That's what the Democrats want you to believe. Thanks, young Serpent. No, I'm not mad at you for bringing it up. I'm glad that even if you're not a Democrat, I enjoy the devil's advocate. Like, it helps. So I'm not upset by any means. But that's the truth. You can't encourage and allow the crisis to go for 3.5 years and then have a bill that at best we could say there are massive disagreements on if it would be beneficial or not, and have that bill go up against a bill that is far stricter that the Republicans are pushing and say, because the Republicans didn't sign our bill, that proves the immigration crisis is their fault. And Democrats do this all the time. It was like when they tried to be like, actually, we're the ones who wanted to fund the police. Because they'll have these massive omnibus bills that spend billions upon billions of dollars on all kinds of bullshit, and there's a small portion of it that goes to law enforcement, and they go, see, we weren't the defund the police people, that was Republicans. So, I'm not buying it. So, anyways, there's a lot to attack Kamala Harris on. That's where I would go. As for debates, there's a question of whether or not Trump will debate Kamala Harris. Listen, I don't think that Trump's very good at one-on-one debates, if I'm quite honest with you. Or at least his shticks ran stale. I think that it worked with Biden because Biden's... I mean, does anyone think Trump really crushed that debate? I don't think so. It looked that way because Biden failed more spectacular than anyone I've ever seen running for national office on a debate stage. But I don't know that Trump crushed it. There was a lot more Trump could have done. Maybe he didn't want to because he didn't want him to get out. Yeah, I saw that they said he would debate and maybe more than once. But everyone's convinced that Trump supporters are all convinced that Trump's going to go in there and just crush Kamala Harris in a debate. I don't know that that'll be the case, because Kamala Harris isn't good at debates either. She's not. But she's capable of memorizing a few key lines. And that's all that'll really be necessary. And no doubt that you'll probably... What are the chances... I think the CNN debate people kind of didn't mind Joe Biden falling on his face. So that his moderation, they were pretty good. What are the chances that you get moderation that fair going forward? Next time it'll be MSNBC or, New York Times people, whatever. Now, I'm not saying Trump shouldn't debate, but if I was Trump's team, I'd say, listen, we debated Biden. We let him set all the rules, so we're going to set the rules. We're going to have Tucker Carlson moderate. We're going to have a live studio audience. That's what we're going to do. Why not? We went into the frying pan with them, so now it's their turn. Personally, that's how I would want to see the debate. I'd want to see RFK up there, absolutely. But I don't think he must be on there. I mean, I wouldn't do it on Fox News. Anybody remember Chris Wallace? Fox sucks. The problem, though, Punished, is the voters that Trump needs to pick up. Like, I don't think if Trump goes on, it's like, Kamala slept her way into office, Willie Brown, like Rosie O'Donnell, she's fat. Is that going to help? It'll be good for the memes. It'll be red meat for the Trump base. That shit was new in 2016. Now it's not. It's baked into the cake. The people that like that shit already voting for Trump. How do you get the people that you need, the undecideds? Is that going to work? Insulting Kamala Harris? I don't think so. So I don't know what that debate would look like. I think it would be interesting. Purely from a entertainment spectacle and someone who's interested in debates, I think it'd be interesting. I do. I think J.D. Vance would have mopped the floor with Kamala Harris. Harris and Trump are more of an even match, I think, to be honest. And then we'll see who she picks as a VP. But who knows? Kamala's not particularly a good debater, but I think I think that she'll look better to moderates. I do. Because she'll be able to memorize some key stuff. She'll be able to say Trump's a convicted rapist. She'll say that. He's a convicted felon. So those are the sorts of things. And then Trump, with those sorts of attacks, Trump will be Trump, coming back at that. You think she'll tap Buttigieg? Josh Shapiro was a possibility, but then I heard people saying, well, he's Jewish. That lets you know where the DEI party is. We had to pick a black woman VP last time, and this time we can't pick a Jew. But trust us, it's the other side that are racist. Yeah, I hear people saying Kelly because he's strong on guns and would dissuade a lot of people that are fearful that Kamala would come from the guns. Which she has said. She wishes that we were more like Australia. No, it'll be a guy. It'll probably be a white guy, to be honest. Which I did see an interesting argument. If they pick a white guy because they want a white guy, is that a DEI hire? Good point. So, it'll be interesting. That sort of debate would be interesting. What else are we going to talk about? So, one of the things that I think's interesting is how, like, you saw young Serpent in here make sort of the border argument, which, again, I'm not upset about. Please don't get it twisted. It's fine. I don't mind people making the arguments in my chat. Even if I do act like a prick sometimes when I'm answering them. But, story going around earlier that Kamala's charged with obstruction of justice. True. Someone filed articles of impeachment. That's not obstruction of justice, but filed articles of impeachment in part for covering up Biden's cognitive decline and for the disaster at the border. Yeah, me too, Punished. I think it would have been much more fun if it was 2-2, but that's okay. I think Andrew's kind of the odd man out in that scenario because Andrew debates differently than the other three of us. So maybe for his preference, he'll prefer a one-on-one, which is fine. So here's something that happened. I'll show you the tweet. Also, I'm utterly convinced. I knew this, but it's just amazing to me. More and more evidence of this. I don't know if it's just the left. I know it's not. I know there'll be people on our side that would do this as well, but I think it looks worse on the left. Do people even read? Do people even read the posts that you put up, or do they listen to what you say before they just jump to criticizing? Because I'll read you this post and I'll tell you what the most common response is. So here's a post I made. Kamala puts this out: when we fight, we win. She put that out 10 hours ago. And I said, there was just an assassination attempt against her opponent. Now, I think this is perfectly fine. She means fight politically. But Democrats use Trump's phrase, fight like hell, in court as proof he incited violence. I assume Democrats will now be demanding an investigation into Harris's incitement here, right? Now, what do you think the most common argument that I heard against that was? They said, oh, Rob, look at you clutching your pearls. How could you believe this? Blah, 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 blah. Now, I think this is perfectly fine. She means fight politically. They just skip that. They skip that. My standard doesn't matter. My standard, if it was my standard, Trump would have never been attempted to be kicked off the ballot in Colorado for saying things like fight like hell. For the other things that occurred, they wouldn't have used those tweets as evidence that he incited an insurrection. That's my standard, but my standard doesn't mean jack shit. I have no pull whatsoever. The Democrats do, and that was their standard. And what you'll see is over and over, the Democrats will cheer for some abuse of the legal system or some sort of standard that they set forth. And you're like, can't you see this will eventually bite you in the ass? And they can't, because they don't give a shit, because, again, they feel that the other side's evil, so anything's justified. The ends always justify the means. And they assume they will never, correctly, almost every time, they'll never be on the opposite end of it. So they don't give a shit. For example, one of the things when the Alex Jones lawsuit came down, where he was like, suit owes $1 billion or something, I said, geez, you would think that streamers, right-wing or left-wing, who talk about politics all day, every day, would be the last people that would be celebrating a big judgment like this against someone for saying something stupid. Because if you're talking 4 to 8 hours a day, you're going to say something stupid, offensive, etc. So if we're setting precedent that lawsuits like this with these huge payouts could occur, that was terrible. He said it was a hoax. He said it was a hoax that these children died. It was set up. Now fast forward to the Trump assassination. How many people, including big name people, did you see saying it was staged? It was all set up by Donald Trump. Fake. Now, of course, they're right. They're not going to be held to the own standard that they wanted. They know that because of the corrupt double standard we have. And I don't think they should. I wouldn't particularly want them to be sued. But why should my standard apply? Why shouldn't they be held to their own standard? Why shouldn't they be held to the standard that they've used the legal system to hold other people to? So what you'll see routinely is the Democrats will pretend that they don't understand what sort of normal political discussion looks like, or what jokes are. For example, the Democrats tried to tell you with all sincerity that after Hillary her team deleted subpoenaed emails, and the FBI was going to let her get away with it, and Trump's giving a speech and it's like, we know the FBI's not going to get to the bottom of it. Hey, Russia, if you're listening, maybe you'll find them. The joke is, our fucking corrupt system, our corrupt law enforcement will not find these and won't hold her to account. But because it was so insecure, she probably got hacked, so the only chance we ever have of knowing what she deleted would be some agent like Russia. That's the joke. Everybody knew it. But no, the Democrats pretended, oh my God, Trump just asked on national television for Russia to hack Hillary's emails. He just did that. Oh my God! Everybody knew it was bullshit. We knew it. They knew it. They knew that we knew that it was bullshit, and they didn't care. They still kept gaslighting you. No, that was a direct call to hack. Now later, by the way, Hillary Clinton, sort of poking at that situation, said, hey, if anyone out there is listening, we'd like to see Trump's tax returns. Maybe someone will get them. And then, of course, someone stole some of Trump's tax returns. Was she investigated for that? Of course not. because it was clear that she wasn't telling people to actually get Trump's tax returns. She was making a point. But everyone was like, oh, that's clear that it was sort of tongue-in-cheek. Everybody understood intuitively. Just like everybody understands when you're tweeting out fight like hell, you could probably... It's like this. Oh my God, I just gave a white power symbol. I was playing b-ball the other day. Every time I'd make a shot, I was like, white power? No, I was signaling 3. No, that's white power. And yet they'll selectively decide, oh, no, we don't know. That could be white power. That's what they do. You see a kid wearing football face paint and some of it's black. Blackface! They pretend to not know. So I could probably find, with short work, 6 politicians that have said we need to fight or fight like hell. Easily. I'm guessing there are thousands of examples. But none of that was a call to violence. None of that was. Just Trump's. Trump tweeted fight like hell. Trump retweeted or liked a tweet that said the cavalry's coming. Therefore, that means he incited January 6th. That's the argument. Okay, fine. Someone says something like that, then that's incitement, correct? Because the Democrats will do it. We'll see an act of violence against a Republican, and then we'll see Democrats that before or after tweeted things like fight like hell. Now they're responsible, right? Time to investigate them. Time to keep them off the ballot, correct? That's your standard. That's the standard you wanted. No. It's different. It's clear that's not what Kamala Harris meant. Really? Just days after an assassination attempt. She said we need to fight. That sounds like a dog whistle to me. Come on, Rob. That's a joke. Right, I know it is. That's why I put... No, I think this is perfectly fine. She means fight politically. But that's not what they thought with Trump. They said, oh, no. We know when he says fight like hell, he's really telling his supporters. Even when he says, we need someone who will fight like hell, not people like Mitch McConnell. So I guess he was saying in that tweet that he wanted Mitch McConnell tape his knuckles up, maybe dip him in glass and go beat some ass in the halls of Congress? Is that the argument? All of a sudden, they understand political rhetoric. Just like that. Immediately. Oh, clearly, when Kamala's saying fight, she doesn't mean physical fight. Right! Isn't that odd? How they intuitively know that right out of the gate. But with Trump, it's different. That's different. And we're not just talking... It's bad enough to have a double standard in you as an individual, or even politicians as individuals, to say, we think this was a call to violence, Trump should be held accountable for his rhetoric. That's bad enough. But to actually then use it in a court of law, in an attempt to keep your opponent off a ballot and to arrest them, that's so far beyond. Now let's look at some of the responses to this. We'll get to Chris McDonald here in a minute. Fight like hell for what exactly? Could it be the delaying of the certification of election by using 7 slates of electors? Something otherwise known as a coup? Is that what he was saying, fight like hell? I think it was. Yeah, that's totally all he said that day. Truly pathetic, Rob. Rob, I can't tell if this is you pulling a Destiny or if we're going to be this petty. We may as well just ban all figures of speech for politicians. Yeah, that's my argument, Carbon. That was my argument with what they did with Trump. Perhaps the difference is the context and the location. What else is being said? Can you clutch those pearls ever harder? Come on, man, this is so dishonest. There was an entire election season of that language from Trump. Continued lies. Giuliani said trial by combat in the same stage earlier that day. Rob, you're smarter than this. We have to look at the broader context of singular sentences. When Trump said fight like hell, he'd already fired up a crowd, and he also told was going to lose their country if they didn't do as he indicated. Of course, violence followed shortly. I said, wow, you're smarter than this. When Harris said when we fight, we win merely a week or so after Trump was almost assassinated. Of course, this is incitement to violence. Isn't this fun? Wait, so you're saying a politician's statement after violence occurs retroactively incited prior violence? That's some Doctor Strange level of time bending. If she said, fight for the promise of America, while suggesting people protest the certification of election she lost, that would indeed be bad. Much like Trump saying fight after he was shot is fine. Context matters. Okay, when Kamala fraudulently tries to replace electors in 7 states with her own slate of false electors and sends an angry mob to the Capitol building during certification to pressure the VP into certifying false electors, it'll be critical of her rhetoric. Oh, stop. Different scenarios and different energy behind the words. You're smarter than this, Rob. By the way, you'll see that a lot. I get your followers aren't the brightest bunch, but maybe context matters sometimes. First off, I get this all the time. These people that try to have this faux appeal, you're smarter than that. And that's sort of a framing device that's trying to be used, because the idea is if you say that, you're like, well, to the people watching, you may think that Rob's smart on some issues. We know he could be smart, but this is so clearly a bad argument. Come on, Rob, we're appealing to you. Please, we know you're smarter than this. Fuck you. Don't try to appeal to me. I'm not that smart. I'm smarter than you dumb fucks telling me that I could be smarter than that. But I'm basically average intelligence, you dumb fucks. You're not smarter than this. That's why I have to point out these double standards, shitheads. And more importantly than not being smart, you're unethical hypocrites. That's who you are. You don't have standards. You don't give a shit. So, thank you for your faux, you're smarter than that. Fuck you. That's what I say to that. Number one. Number two, notice what they are cleverly doing here, right? They say, well, if you look at the false electors, if you look at all of that, then that proves when Trump said fight like hell, he meant commit acts of violence. Can someone explain that to me? How's that work? Let's say that I would hypothetically say, yeah, Trump's false electors scheme was illegal. He should go to jail for that. Does that mean him saying fight like hell was a call for violence? No! They don't connect to each other. They don't connect. What they're doing is they have a conclusion in mind. So they say, Trump tried a coup and Trump wanted a violent insurrection. And then they go back and they say, see, everything he said is proof of that. And when you're like, okay, so let's look at the evidence. For example, give me the evidence that Trump incited violence. Give it to me. Legally, what have they said? What's the evidence that Trump incited violence? What is it? They kept him off the ballot in Colorado because they had to say that Trump engaged in an insurrection. So they argued that it was an insurrection January 6th, but that's not enough. They have to argue that Trump engaged in it. And how did they try to prove that Trump engaged in an insurrection? What was the evidence? Well, he tweeted out fight like hell, or he said fight like hell. And he retweeted or liked a tweet that said the cavalry is coming. And even though he said go be peaceful, we know that he meant go be violent. So the evidence they have that he incited violence was statements like this, fight like hell. Then when I say, but that's a very benign thing that politicians say all the time they say that. They say, but the alternate electors. Right. So it's just circular reasoning's all it is. They say, alternate electors were bad, therefore fight like hell meant violence. And I say, but where's your evidence that fight like hell meant violence? Well, the alternate electors are bad. Right, but even if that was true, which is a separate debate, that doesn't mean that saying fight like hell was violence. But violence occurred. Right, that shit happens all the time. People say phrases like fight like hell, and then someone goes out and does something heinous. That doesn't mean that they're responsible for it, or that they're criminally liable for it. Yeah, but the alternate electors were bad. Right, we just talked about that. That doesn't mean that saying fight like hell... They work backwards, is what they do. We don't like what Trump did, so him saying fight like hell was bad. Then the other argument that people were making was this. Well, the difference is, Trump made his statement before an act of violence. Kamala made her statement after an act of violence. So that's different. I say that's worse, hypothetically. Now, unless people are slow-witted here, let me be clear. Under no circumstance whatsoever do I think that by my standard that Kamala Harris should be judged in any way whatsoever for saying, when we fight, we win. I think that is a very common political expression. I think it is completely evident that what she's saying is, She means politically. Fight for your country. Fight at the ballot box. That is 100% what I think her interpretation is. Without batting an eye, I do not think that this was somehow an allusion to people or a dog whistle to people that what happened to Trump was acceptable. I'm not saying that. But that's clear. The same was true of Trump saying fight like hell. And if the standard is him saying that landed him in court and that was used as evidence for incitement to violence, why should it be different with Kamala Harris? Does anyone know where you can find non-smoker? I'll try to find his X handle, and I'll put a link up later here, Maury. But saying something after an act of violence that's allegedly a call to violence is worse. Because you could plead ignorance beforehand. Fight like hell. Someone goes out and does something violent. Oh shit, I didn't know that was going to happen. Your crowd goes out and engages in mob-like behavior, and then you come out afterwards and say, fight like hell. Now you already know at that point that they engaged in violence. I still don't think that you're culpable, that that's criminal evidence, saying fight like hell afterwards. But certainly it's an easier case to make. So, for example, when there was an insurrection, not my word, theirs, at the White House on May 31st, 2020, and a bunch of violent left-wingers brought lethal weapons in the form of Molotov cocktails, which they deployed, unlike on January 6th, injured dozens of guards, burned down a guard station in an attempt to break into the White House to get to the people inside the White House, including Donald Trump, a threat that was taken so severely that Trump had to be moved to a secure bunker. Joe Biden came out a week later and made fun of Trump. He said he should go back to his bunker. That's what he said. Made fun of that. Do you think after January 6th, if Donald Trump came out and said, hey, AOC, why don't you crawl back under your desk? Do you think that would have been used in court as evidence that he incited an insurrection? What do you think? What do you think the Democrats' interpretation would have been of that? What do you think? If Donald Trump, after January 6th, said to Nancy Pelosi or AOC, why don't you crawl under your desk again like you were on January 6th, do you think Democrats would have said, oh, that's evidence he incited a violence. He was engaged in insurrection. Or would they have said, perfectly fine, reasonable? Which one do you think they would have said? And yet when Joe Biden made fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker, weird. I don't recall any Democrats saying, wow, how dare you make fun of the president after an insurrection attempted to remove him from office? How dare you? By the way, one of my favorite things when I debate Destiny, he's so quick to judge other people for what he thinks they should know and not being informed, and they haven't read enough, and if they haven't came to the conclusion he did, then they're fucking around and finding out. If they go to a Trump rally, well, that's supporting an insurrectionist, etc., etc. But notice he chooses to be ill-informed on a great many of issues that would make his side look bad, and then he all of a sudden becomes not only the least curious person in the world, but also the least intelligent person in the world. For example, if you watch the spaces that I was on with him, and I brought up May 31st, and he's like, well, I don't know about that. I would, if I would say it was bad if it met my definition of insurrection. I said, okay. Well, why haven't you looked into it? I've talked to you before about it. Well, I said, fine. There wasn't a massive FBI investigation, but use your best judgment. What do you think that mob of people were trying to do with Molotov cocktails breaking into the White House? What do you think their intent was? And what do you think he said? Oh, I don't know. I just don't know. Or when I had a debate with him on Burisma, and I talked specifically about the PR firm Blue Star Strategies that Burisma had hired that reached out to the State Department, I believe, and said, hey, Hunter Biden works here. We'd like to talk to you. Hunter Biden, blah, blah, blah. We'd like to set up a meeting. And I said, what do you think they were doing? What do you think that was about? Why'd they say Hunter Biden? And he said, I don't know. Maybe they wanted to talk about how to spell the name Burisma. Isn't that funny? For quite the intellectual that likes to lecture other people and say that we shouldn't have sympathy when violence is enacted upon them because they're so stupid and they're so intellectually incurious. Isn't that weird? When it's stuff that makes his side look bad, I don't know, maybe they wanted to know how to spell the name of the company?
I just don't know what those violent left-wingers were doing with Molotov cocktails trying to get into the White House. We'll never know. We'll never, unless the FBI specifically tells me, how could I have some sort of judgment? So that was okay. How about when, after we saw another left-wing insurrection in Minneapolis where they burned down a police station and rioted and harmed a bunch of people, innocent people and law enforcement alike, and Kamala Harris promoted a bail fund. What do you think would have happened if Trump promoted a bail fund in the immediate aftermath of January 6th? Would they have used that as evidence that he engaged in an insurrection? Yes! If I would have said, oh, no, he was only putting a bail fund up for the innocent people that were arrested, not the ones that engaged in acts of violence, do you think the Democrats would have said, fair enough, that sounds entirely reasonable? Would that have been their argument? No! They would have said, bullshit! Those people were there and arrested for a reason. Trump's trying to bail them out because he liked what they did. It was an insurrection to benefit him. That's what they would have said. But when Kamala Harris did it, no problem. But these people responding to my tweet say, that's different. That doesn't count because that's after the fact. That was violence occurred, and then they made these claims. I think making those claims afterwards, again, let me be clear, based on my standard, particularly Kamala Harris's claim here, when we fight, we win, I don't think that's anything connected to Trump's assassination attempt. But based on their standard, if we're going to just say, if you say fight before an attack, or if you say fight after, which is worse? Probably saying after, because you know that there's already been violence enacted. But fine, for the sake of argument, so be it. The argument is, no, only claims before an act of violence count. Okay. Chuck Schumer said that Brett Kavanaugh had reaped the whirlwind and would face consequences. And then a bunch of people protested outside their house, and the Democrats, even though it was illegal, stood by and did nothing. And then there was an assassination attempt on Kavanaugh. Schumer responsible? One of the people you saw there said, well, if when Trump said they stole the election from you and we need to fight like hell, that, saying it in that context, okay, Schumer said they stole women's rights from them. And Kavanaugh would reap the whirlwind and face the consequences. Isn't that equally inflammatory? Or how about AOC and Kamala Harris both saying, as they saw riots occurring daily, that they should continue up until the election. That what was going on the ground should continue until the election. Was that a call to violence? Now, I believe I have this clip. Let me check. Of course, my computer will overheat as I try to play it, but what can you do? This is from August of 2020. Kamala Harris on Stephen Colbert's show. So we'd seen months of rioting.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should, that's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to.
Take note. You should be worried about that. They're not going to stop. You know, the riots you're seeing at almost nightly level? Huh. That's odd. There's your presidential nominee, your vice president. They're not going to stop, and they shouldn't stop. Really? As riots are occurring on a nightly level. Imagine if Trump came out and said, after January 6th, said that these people aren't going to stop. They're never going to stop, and they shouldn't. And then we saw more violence. What do you think they would have said? I'll make it as simple as possible. My standard is,
although you might be able to say, wait a minute, are you raising the temperature by saying stuff like this? I don't hold any of these people criminally accountable whatsoever or say that they incited violence for saying these things. Not Kamala Harris, not Joe Biden. In fact, when Joe Biden made fun of Trump, said to go back to his bunker, show me once calling for his ouster for that. Show me saying he shouldn't be allowed on the ballot. Show me saying he should have faced legal repercussions. I didn't say any of that. Show me saying he should have been investigated to make sure that he wasn't connected with the violent people. I never said any of that. At all. I didn't say that about any Democrat politicians. I said that the violence was getting out of control and it should be condemned, and the left was ignoring it, and it was going to get worse, and eventually the right would engage in violence and they would lose their mind, and their standard would be completely different. All of that's true. But I never called for locking them up for saying this. I didn't say they were criminally accountable. But that's what almost every Democrat said. Oh, Trump said fight like hell. Take him to court. That's incitement. Why should my standard matter? Why shouldn't they be held to their own standard? So I thought that was interesting. What else we got to talk about today? I think that it's hilarious to see how many people, for a brief moment, on the Democratic side, particularly those that didn't want to see Biden drop out, imagine being them. Imagine being someone like Wick, right? And you're a lefty, and all of a sudden, the same media that you've listened to your entire life that tells you what you're supposed to think, all of a sudden, the veil comes down, and you see, like, holy shit, they're not being media at all. They're not reporting the news. They're creating the news. They're putting their thumb on the scale. Imagine being those people. What a shock that must have been, right? Sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. As the entire media tells the world that Biden has cognitive decline, they'll believe that he has cognitive decline, which will lower his poll numbers, which will then force him to be removed. And if he's not removed, it'll harm him in the general election. And that's terrible. And they shouldn't be doing that. For a brief moment in time, they saw it. And I was posting to people like that's X account. I was like, yeah, imagine being a Trump supporter. And what we've dealt with. But now it's over. And the veil can rise again. Do you think that even one Biden supporter that was furious with the treatment he was getting from the media had any amount of self-reflection and said, geez, if the media was this unfair and obviously biased for their own personal intentions when it came to Joe Biden, maybe they've done so with other politicians, including Republicans, including people like Donald Trump. Do you think there's even one of them that had that amount of self-reflection? At all? Tuned into a little bit of Destiny stream the other day, and I saw Pisco was on there. And he was saying, it's time for the New York Times to get on board now, Kamala Harris. Come on, New York Times, time to get on board. Isn't that interesting how they instinctively know, well, here's all the major media outlets that just have to get on board. Not to be journalists, but to literally be propagandists for our side. We need that. And they know how powerful it was in forcing Joe Biden out. They know how it influenced the narrative and public perception. But they just completely expect it. Completely. Or look at them gnashing their teeth of, oh my God, Elon Musk owns X and he's donating millions of dollars to Trump's campaign. Okay. Where were you with Zuckerbucks? Where were you when X, YouTube, Google, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, etc. were all manipulating the algorithms in benefit of the Democrats? Where were they? Perfectly fine. But as soon as someone like Elon Musk buys X, they're like, this is unfair. This isn't right. I've yet to see mass censorship of Democrat positions going into this election cycle in places like X, and yet that's exactly what we saw when it came to stories critical of Joe Biden from social media platforms going into the 2020 election. I'll repeat Thomas Sowell again. When you're a member of a privileged class, equal treatment feels like discrimination. They fully expect all of these institutions to 100% be on their side. How dare they criticize their candidate? And the irony was, it was like Biden supporters that didn't want him to drop out. Like, they're so stupid. I've seen even like media people on X going, well, you know, everyone says the media is biased against Trump and against Republicans, but man, they went after Biden real hard. How do you explain that? What? You really need me? You're a media professional and you need me to explain to you what happened. That's what you need. Okay, let me speak slowly. For anyone that says, well, the media went hard after Biden, so that proves that they're not in the tank for the Democrats. The media hates Trump. Those media outlets that we're talking about, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, the ones that really shape our public discourse, they hate Trump. And they were perfectly happy to lie for years about the mental health of Joe Biden, because that helps them beat Trump. But once the American people saw through the lie, they then had to cover their ass and realize that Biden was now hurting their chances to beat Trump. And so they reported negatively on Biden, not because all of a sudden they became journalists, not because all of a sudden they became Trump supporters, but because they wanted to get Biden out and have someone replace him who they could then all get behind sycophantically in an effort to beat Trump. So no, the media being critical of Biden does not prove that all of a sudden that they're Trump supporters or something like that. Now, if you're just someone who is a streamer or a casual poster on social media that deals in politics and didn't know that, that's a bit shameful on your part. But if you're a media professional and you didn't know that, you're either gaslighting people or you're the biggest fucking idiot in the world and you shouldn't be involved. Meanwhile, the ass-kissing of Kamala Harris begins apace. They treat her like a toddler, which I guess is par for the course. If you watch Destiny's rhetoric or the rhetoric of so many people on the left this week, you can see that that's how they act. If you've ever had a toddler, it's very similar. They don't get their way, so they yell and scream and say that people deserve violence or no sympathy for violence or blah, blah, blah. That's what they do. And then you have to go, here's your little toy, here's something, don't feel too bad. And they go, okay, now I can calm down a little. Compare that to me, someone who loses politically over and over and over again. My big issue is corruption in the institutions. Can you name me one time that there's been any sort of accountability for corruption in these institutions? Cheadle stepping down is the closest we'll get to that, and that ain't shit. Sometimes my chat stops moving. I can't figure out why. So they treat her like a toddler, which I think, like, if they want to be like, Kamala worked on this bill and we think that bill's good, okay. But it's like, oh, the way she talks. She's embracing her inner brat. That was one of the segments today. Holy shit. It's pathetic. And so we'll get to see months of that. She's the greatest. She's awesome. Trump's the worst. He's the rapist. He's this, that. There you go. There's your news cycle. And you saw the Biden supporters know the power of this. I understand what they're doing. But Newsmax, but Fox. Yes. Those institutions, the difference is this. 95%, if not higher, of the regular Fox News viewers are already voting for Donald Trump. And yes, you could say maybe that's true of places like MSNBC. But ABC, CBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post, most moderates or undecideds aren't getting their politics information from Fox News or Newsmaster Breitbart. And even if you could argue that, overwhelmingly, when you look at the whole picture, although Fox may have a larger piece of the pie than any other one of those places, by the way, I think Fox sucks and I never watch it anyways, but all of those other places combined have way more authority and pull as a media conglomerate than Fox. Andiamo, voter fraud will be one in a large list of things. They may not even need to get to voter fraud. When you control the algorithm, when you control the narrative, you don't need voter fraud. My concern's always been more on that end of things. So. But I assume they'll do anything possible to win. But they know. The same people that, money in politics, it's terrible. Absolutely on board with all of the establishment media. Gung-ho, sycophantic for Kamala Harris. We're getting behind Kamala and going after Trump as hard as possible. That's fine. No problem. What else did I want to talk about? So, a news story broke today. It's difficult to find exactly what's going on here. I tried to read through this. So, one of the things that occurs is because our FBI is corrupt and they're always covering up evidence of crimes that benefit one side and going after fake crimes of the other side, and we don't have a real media class, oftentimes what you see is we don't have like Republicans in Congress that ever hold them to account. They shake their fingers and say, don't do that, and then they continue to fund them to the tunes of billions of dollars, so there's never any accountability. And the FBI just basically goes, go fuck yourself, Republicans in Congress, and the Republicans go, wow, that's outrageous behavior. We're going to write you a check right now, but shit, we're really upset about this check. How many zeros did you want on that? Oh, sure. But yeah, we're definitely angrily signing this check. Here you go, FBI. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And they go, cool, go fuck yourselves. We'll see you again later when we need more money. Well, we'll give it to you, but we're very disappointed in you. That's what happens. So there's never accountability that comes from that end of things. Like Republicans, they don't give a shit. In reality, the Republican leadership is no different than the Democrat leadership, and they don't want an outsider like Donald Trump. And so they say, fuck it, yeah, we'll pretend to stick up to him because we have to so that we can have the illusion to our voters of actually doing something about it, but we'll never hold anyone to account whatsoever. That's the game. So then it's left to outside organizations like the Heritage Foundation or other places to try to file Freedom of Information Act requests so that the American people could at least get some sort of information, since Congress is unwilling to do that largely anyways. So the Heritage Foundation files a Freedom of Information Act request for the transcripts of the calls or of the conversations between Joe Biden and his ghostwriter. I believe that's what the transcripts were. I need to look more into it, but I believe that's what it was. The FBI was claiming they did not have those transcripts, that the special counsel, did not save those transcripts. They did not have them. Guess what they found today? Biden's not running again. Oh, wait. We found them. We found those transcripts. Our bad. Is that weird? Oh my goodness. My wife texted me. She got a refrigerator for my garage, which is great. I love that. I'm the proud owner of a garage fridge. Damn right.
There's going to be so many Capri Suns in that thing. Fuck Andrew Wilson for making fun of me for drinking Capri Sun. Clip that shit and send it to the Crucible. That'll be the debate. Once Andrew's done debating Destiny, me versus Andrew Wilson. Capri Sun versus whatever beverage he wants to choose. Bring it on. I'll kick his ass on that one. I swear to God, my chat just stops working. There we go. Garage Fridge. Get those super chats rolling. My electric bill just went up. No, I'm just kidding. If you have money, I'll take it. But I think Andrew's supposed to debate Destiny Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. But so yeah, my garage is underneath my house, so it's like doubles as my basement. So, but my wife and did a lot of work cleaning that out. It wasn't grotesque or anything. We have a hot tub down there as well, but it definitely needed cleaned up a little. She did a great job for my birthday cleaning it up. I always said that you made it when you have a gazebo. So at some point in my life, I'm going to get a gazebo. And then I've made it. Finally, I've reached the big time. Gazebo living. I told Andrew I'd help him with the bait prep if I'm not going to moderate it. I would do a garage stream. I don't know how good my internet is because my internet router's way upstairs. So I don't know if I do a stream from the basement, it might. I tried once. It didn't work out well. Yeah, if you have a gazebo with a fridge. Now you made it. I bet that fucking Destiny has a gazebo with a fridge. Prick. He'll be doing a live stream from it next week. Like, yeah, how about this shit? Gazebo with fridge. Anyways, what was I talking about before I got rudely interrupted by garage fridge business, which is great news. Andrew said, waste of time debating Destiny. Next day is debating Destiny. Yeah. Oh, yeah, thanks, Khalil. Khalil follows me. Transcripts. Yeah, so isn't that interesting? They found them. They found the transcripts now. And this shit happens all the time. And they'll just... The Democrats will go by, oh, yeah, there's no evidence that this was shady. No, they found them now. Go way back to Russiagate. Do you remember there was this Twitter hashtag, release the memo, right? Where Devin Nunes had this memo, and he got to see like a bunch of classified information about the FBI's FISA warrants against Trump's team. And he saw that it was all bullshit, that it relied on Hillary Clinton's paid-for opposition research, and that they didn't verify it. Remember that? And there was this big hashtag, release the memo, release the memo. And the Democrats were like, that's all Russian bots. That's Russian bots tweeting out, release the memo. That's all bullshit. And then Adam Schiff put out a counter memo that was like, everything Nunes says is bullshit. It's all a lie. And everybody wanted to see the memos. And then it got released, and it turned out Nunes was absolutely telling the truth, and Schiff had lied. There was no consequences whatsoever for Schiff just blatantly fucking lying. He's still running out there into national TV. All of the so-called journalists that you think would be appalled that they were made to look like fools because their source had lied to them on national TV continue to bring him on and not question him about his blatant lies. Which goes to show you how corrupt the media people are. They're not real journalists. They're there to propagandize and spread those lies as well. They don't give a shit. They don't care at all. Then when we found out, when it got released, the FBI redacted a bunch. And they said, we have to redact this because it would jeopardize lives for our sources and methods to be released. And then eventually we got to see it unredacted. And most of the shit they redacted was stuff like, they spent $70,000 for a couch. Excuse me? Why would that have jeopardized lives? Had we known that? They just bullshit you constantly. Constantly. They bullshit us. They bullshit Freedom of Information Act requests. They bullshit Congress. They don't care. There's never accountability. At all. Ever. And then Congress will fund them. The media goes along with it. And the next news story comes and that's that.
Now think about how big of a story the Hur report was. Back then, the clearest case that Democrats were going for against Trump was the classified documents. Remember? Panel after panel I was on, and they said, Rob, it's not even debatable. He said on tape, Trump admitted on tape that he had classified information. That's not exactly what happened. He said that he could have declassified it. Didn't know if he was supposed to be showing it. They said, that's it. Proof positive. He committed this crime. Okay. Then we found out that, turns out Joe Biden himself had some classified docs. Then we find out not once, not twice, but 3 times on tape, he admitted to his ghostwriter and read classified documents. Even once admitting, handing it to him for him to read, something Trump was never accused of doing. On tape, handed it to him, said, I probably shouldn't show, this is probably classified. What'd the Democrats say? What day? Remember I was doing every day on X, I'd be like, day 4, still haven't heard the Democrats comment on this. Day 5, have they ever? Have you ever seen anyone? Now I know Pisco was doing a stream where he was painstakingly starting at the beginning and going through it. Weird, I didn't see any of his tweets though. Quick to tweet about other shit, but that didn't seem to have much all to say. That was the argument. And then remember, Hur left him off the hook and was like, well, even though we see evidence of intentionality, which they had, Biden admitted it was probably classified, that's good enough. He admitted that he had the Afghan documents in his basement, that's good enough. They said, well, even still, we don't know if a jury would convict because he would present himself as an old man with memory issues. He'd be sympathetic. And what was the Democrats' answer to that? That's outrageous! Outrageous! How dare Robert Hur say that? How dare he? And we said, cool. Can we see the audio tapes then of the interview with Biden? Because Hur seemed to think listening that there was clearly a problem with Biden. Remember, I was making posts and making videos that said, so the Democrats' argument is that Biden is too mentally compromised to be held accountable for crimes, but should be the president. And Trump is also mentally compromised, but not enough to be... He could still be held accountable for crimes, but enough that he can't be president. You see? That's the Democrats' argument. That's what was going on. And they said, no, you can't... Okay, here's the transcripts, but you can't hear the audio. And trust us, the transcripts are the exact same as the audio. The exact same, but you can't hear the audio because executive privilege. Does that make sense? If it's literally the exact same, then there's no executive privilege, right? That'd be like saying, well, we could release the transcript in black and white, but the original transcript was in color. We can't release that for executive privilege. Why? If it's literally the same thing, which is superficial differences, and the one wasn't covered by executive privilege, why would the other? Nope, you just can't. You can't. Trust us, they're the same, though. And oh boy, they defended that, didn't they? And now it turns out, wow, look at that. Biden did have cognitive decline, and everybody knew. Maybe that's the reason they didn't want the transcripts released. Because they were trying to cover that up, which is exactly what was going on. I even talked, how many people did I debate? And I was like, why do you think they haven't released those? Oh, no. You know the reason. We all know the reason why they didn't. Hop on Destiny stream and roast his ass. About what? He's going to debate Andrew in 2 days. Do you think it would be beneficial for me to go on there and roast his ass on the topic that he's about to talk to Andrew to give him prep for that? Then they were like, well, we can't release the audio because people may use deep fakes. What? If that's an explanation for executive privilege, you literally can make the argument that every single thing the president does is covered by executive privilege. Because any amount of audio or video could eventually be used as a deep fake, theoretically. So, okay, can't release anything then. That's really the argument we're going with? Absurd. And now, where are we? Now we've fallen so far. Okay, we said we didn't have that stuff. But conveniently, less than a week after Biden announces he's not running, oops, you won't believe it, we found some of the transcripts. Our bad. And this is constantly what they do. You remember, speaking of destiny, you remember there was a time we were on a panel or something and I was talking to you about, I remember this came up, and it's just laughable because this is par for the course for Democrats. I bring up something from Russiagate, Destiny goes, it was a long time ago. Right. Democrat 101, when something's occurring in real time, they say you're a crazy conspiracy theorist, don't listen to you, you're full of shit, blah, blah, blah. Then, after years go by and you're proven to be right, they go, well, that was a long time ago. There's nothing we can do now. James Comey's not at the FBI anymore, so problem solved. Nothing now. Now we're on to the next thing. And you're like, well, that thing's bullshit too. And we'll probably find that out eventually. No, this time we swear we're telling the truth. This time it's the way it is. And then once they get what they need out of it 2 years later, they'll go, who cares if it was bullshit? We've moved on to the next thing now. But trust us, this thing's real. Constantly. That's what they do. So now no one gives a shit. They could come out in the next 12 months and admit, actually, after Biden's presidency's over, they could be like, yeah, actually, we find evidence that Joe Biden did force that quid pro quo to help Burisma. He did do that. Do you think all the people I spent hours and hours arguing, would they give a fuck? They wouldn't care. You know how I know? Because it was the same with Russiagate. When I was debating them, it's like, wow, it looks really bad. It looks like they used opposition research to get an illegal FISA warrant that they'd never verified the research to spy on Trump's team. No, that couldn't have happened. Then once it's definitively admitted that it happened, they're like, well, that's regrettable. Anyways, next story. And they're very good at just being chill. It's like, we talked about this yesterday. Now, they immediately jumped on, Trump's too old. 3 days ago, they were telling you, we don't see evidence of Biden's cognitive decline. And now it's Trump's too old. Oh, are you the actual Andrew Wilson? Or are you a bullshit impersonator? We got Zen's forehead. Someone said Jim Bob's shoulders. Andrew Wilson. I can't keep up anymore. I thought Zen Shapiro's forehead was the actual Zen Shapiro for the Crucible for like 6 months. I really did. I'd have ran into Zen in fucking the grocery store or something. Been like, what's up, man? Thanks for the super chat last night. He'd been like, what the fuck you talking about? What? Which is kind of funny. But they just don't give a shit. They don't care. They'll just blatantly gaslight you. They don't give a fuck at all. They all swore to you that Biden didn't have cognitive decline. They swore. Now they're making... By the way, I love this argument. The argument they're making now is like, well, what do you want? No, he's not running for office. Isn't that what Republicans wanted? No, if he's not fit for office, is no one else concerned about, the next 6 months? No one's concerned about that? If he's not fit to run for office, then why is he fit to be president? No answer. They don't give a shit. None of it matters. They have to control the narrative. Now the narrative is they're fucking unhinged crybabies that are like, but false electors. Hey, buddy, the courts have spoken. Isn't that what you told people about fraud in the 2020 election? How about the courts have spoken? Let's go a step further. Let's say that YouTube bans you from talking about the alternate electors because they think that that's dangerous. How about that? That's what they did. That's what YouTube did when the courts decided about the 2020 election. Not only did the courts decide and that was the end-all be-all, then we were told we couldn't even talk about it on social media. Whatever the issue, it's always going to be Trump's an existential threat because of Russia. Because of, insert the next thing, because of the false electors. It's always the same shit. No, I'll happily debate Destiny or Pisco on this shit. I don't mind. That's absolutely fine. But it should probably be something that's more than just me hopping on their channel at any point. I mean, I don't mind doing that, but seeing as how there's a literal debate coming up that I'm sure they're preparing for. Oh, fuck it. I can't even open Discord. Now, while we're talking about Destiny, I might as well say this. I think that I've sort of defended Destiny. I think that his jokes have been grotesque, but jokes are jokes. I'm willing to overlook them. I think he does have a point that sometimes there's hypocrisy when people make jokes the other way. Hey, Rob, what up? Looking kind of down, sir. Do I look down? No, I'm actually in a good mood. I get off work tomorrow. I'm actually feeling pretty good. I just found out my wife got me a fridge for the garage, so I'm fucking pumped. What do I got? Is it the gray clothes? I don't know. Sorry about that. I'm feeling good. But one thing I'll say is, yeah, thanks for inquiring. One thing I'll say, though, is, like, now the narrative is shifted to, well, clearly Destiny was never calling for violence, and clearly he was just making jokes and whatever, and look at these hypocrites and blah, blah, blah. That's not that clear. I did a lot of work, which is informed by my bias, to say I don't think that Destiny's actually calling for violence. But let me be clear. I said at the time, the one thing he said that I was like, wait, what? And I don't even know if it's still online, because as far as I know, Destiny deletes his YouTube videos after he's done with them. So I don't know where you could find this. But it happened. Was sort of before he did the Piers Morgan shit, before he did that first YouTube space. I'm just kind of working, driving around, and this firefighter had it coming, and F him, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Oh, no, it was after the spaces. It was after that. And the last call of his show was Pisco. Now, for my sake, I'm giving Destiny the benefit of the doubt and say when he makes fun of this firefighter for being killed, when he says he has no sympathy for people at Trump rallies being killed, that's not saying he's calling for their death. And that's where I draw the line, if he's calling for violence. So that's what I said, and I defended him on that point, even if it's grotesque what he's saying. And I also defended him that although I think that many of the people here calling hypocrites didn't do things quite as bad as him, it was in the same spirit when you're making fun of Paul Pelosi or you're making fun of George Floyd. There are differences that I think making fun of this firefighter and the assassination attempt at Trump is worse, but it's irrelevant to the grand scheme of, are we holding people to standards that they seek to apply to others? Andrew Shee Wilson, $4.99, start sending super chats now. Very authoritative. I like that. No pissing around. Just send them now. I like that. I'll take your money. Thank you. Fake electors. Sure, I talked about it yesterday at great length, but I could talk about it again at some point. Anyways, the thing that Destiny said that I was like, whoa, was when Pisco called in, and Pisco starts off by saying, like, are you all right? And Destiny's like, nah. I don't know what he says, but it wasn't like yes. And I was like, yeah, I think he's on tilt. They hem and haw a little bit, and then Pisco says, did you want that bullet to kill Trump? And Destiny's response was, I don't know what I could say. And then he goes, well, I'll say this. Someone shooting at Trump and not killing him was the worst possible outcome. Yeah, on tilt. That's my way of saying he's spiraling out of control because he's received a bunch of political losses, and maybe he has things going on in his personal life I don't know about, but he's received a bunch of personal losses in rapid-fire succession, and so he's just in a downward spiral. I would call that on tilt. That's way different. That's way different than like, I'm making jokes about this guy dying, or I have no sympathy if the guy dies. Implying maybe I did want Trump to die. That's different. Now, I can even accept on Piers Morgan, where his answer was, will you condemn this? And he said, not in front of you people. And the argument would be, fuck you, I don't like you, you're right-wingers, kiss my ass, I don't owe you anything. But Pisco's his buddy. That's not some right-winger saying, I demand an apology. That's his buddy. Veda, for $5, says, you should call into debate when it's audience participation time and slap Destiny around just for a bit. I'm not going to do it before Andrew debates him Thursday. That would just be preparation to debate Andrew, so I'm not going to do that. It would be dumb on my part. I'm not trying to help Like, for example, I called in and debated Destiny to help him prepare for Alex Jones. Why would I do that for Andrew, to help him debate Andrew? Now, I ultimately came to the conclusion that I thought he was just in a pissy mood and he didn't really mean it. But the idea that the narrative's now trying to be spun, well, clearly, he was just telling edgy jokes. No, it wasn't that clear. That's not clear at all. I still think that's what was happening. Call into his show after Andrew debates. I'm sure I'll talk to Destiny at some point. Again, let's go back to talking about professional wrestling for a minute, right? And I know this is going to be a bad look because people are going to say, is Rob admitting that he's just pretending to be a character like a wrestler? No, that's not what I'm saying. If you understand booking professional wrestling, one of the things you don't do is sell a huge high-ticket match for free on TV, right? So if you have a match that you've built up for a year, Brock Lesnar's going to face Seth Rollins. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, by the way, that'll be free on television Thursday night. That's really stupid when you could sell a pay-per-view. Like, what good would it be to my benefit? I mean, yeah, I've called into Destiny's show before. I'll do it. But wouldn't it be better if I set up an actual fucking debate so that, like, there'd be a bunch of eyeballs on me? For example, when I joined the X Spaces and debated Destiny for 20 minutes on these issues, I probably got like 1,000 YouTube subscribers out of that. Or not followers or whatever. Not money, but if I call into a show, it'll be the same as always. So, yeah, well, now things have changed, Conservative Carnage. So, I don't know. I don't know what the utility is. Like, call in. The way that normally works is there's no moderator, so it'll just cut me off the whole time. Same old shit. I'll call into Fresh and Fit. I thought that it wasn't on Fresh and Fit. I'll try to watch live, and if they take call-ins, I'll try to call in. That I will do. That's right. That's what I'm saying, Nico. Work the fucking angle. Don't worry, I'll beat his ass. He bring his buddy Pisco, too. Oh, it's on the Crucible? Okay. Yeah, then it's not going to be in Fresh and Fit. Who's moderating it? Andrew, I didn't get the answer. I'm assuming you're not the real Andrew Wilson. But if you are the real Andrew, text me. Myron's moderator? Okay. Yeah, I mean, Myron's probably a better choice than me to moderate it because he's a bigger name. I think Andrew's a great moderator. I think I'm a great moderator. I haven't seen Myron moderate, but hopefully he'll be fair. But he's a bigger name, and I think if you're Andrew and Destiny, that's what you want. Yeah, I don't think it's the real Andrew. You can't type that fast with a cigarette in your hand, so I know that's not Andrew. Did I see the release body cam footage from the roof? I did. But that woman resigned, so it's all good now, right? Oh, for fuck's sakes. Do I think Sitch and Adam were right to go that hard against Pisco? I've talked about this twice already, so I'll just say I don't give a shit. I think Pisco does act in a way that's bad faith and he deserves to be called out. But I don't know that Sitch and Adam are the people to call them out. They treated me like shit when I was on their show, and then Adam continually publicly said that I went on the show and called Sitch a liar, which maybe happened in the course of that 4-hour show. I asked him to show me where. He is yet to be able to do so. So, I personally don't think I would do a whole show saying that someone's an asshole, but I guess I kind of have, because I've done large portion of the show about how Pisco's shit for this Jamal Bowman thing. But I think that's different. That's how he argues, sort of. That's different than being like, you're too confrontational. So, I don't know. I don't give a fuck. It's all petty bullshit. I don't care at all. They went after Pisco because there was an argument that I think Adam had with Pisco on X, and one thing that's true of Pisco, both in probably 50 to 60% of his debates that he has on video or live, but probably 95% of his tweets, is he's a total raging fucking asshole. Like, he'll just start off like this. No, you're a fucking idiot, you fucking moron. What a fucking, that's like the dumbest fucking thing I'd ever heard anyone say, you fucking moron. And it's like, okay. Now, I don't give a shit, because I can match that energy and it doesn't really bother me. But if you're some pseudo-normie or you're not used to that shit, particularly on X, it comes across as like, what? Why would I want to talk to this guy? Who are elite left-wing debaters? Is Sam Cedar good or just hyped up? I don't watch a lot of Sam Cedar. I've seen some of his debates and I wasn't too impressed. I think rhetorically he's okay, though. It depends on what you're talking about. Oftentimes people are good at debate on different subjects. So there are left-wing debaters that would beat the shit out of me on certain subjects. I'm not an expert in anything, so I'm just a pretty good debater. So I'm okay on a litany of subjects, and I think I'm pretty good on the subjects that I focus on. But, if I debated some left-winger on, the nuances of electric vehicles, they probably have a leg up on me because I don't know shit all about it, just sort of general information. People I think Destiny's a good left-wing debater. I do. I think when it comes to legal issues, Pisco could be an effective left-wing debater. I think when it comes to sort of economic issues, I've sometimes heard Econo Boy be good. Other times I've heard him be shit, though. But he could be effective in the way that he presents himself if he's doing so correctly. I think Synth sometimes, that used to be on the Crucible as a left-winger, can be an effective rhetorician. Vosh is slippery, but sometimes he could be difficult because of the slippery nature of the things, the way he goes about. But, I mean, outside the scope of that, I don't know. Like, in a bigger venue, I haven't watched a lot of, Amazing Atheist or Sam Cedar. Is Sam Cedar amazing? I don't fucking know. Or, I've seen David Pakman. He could be effective in some degree. I don't know. Yeah, it's not water, it's agua. That was a brutal argument. Anything, am I missing any news that's going on now? Dausch. Yeah. Oh, Christ. Did I miss anything today? Any news that people want to talk about? TikTok rate someday. Oh yeah, Brianna Wu video. It was fun. Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel. Check it out. She's wretched.
Kill the 19th gaining steam. There's a winning argument for Republicans. I'm not in favor of that. I'm not. I don't think that you should have a criteria for voting based on immutable characteristics, like the sex that you were born. I do think there ought to be some barriers to voting. The barrier that I prefer is in person with an ID. That's the barrier I prefer. I think that shows a minimal amount of effort that will keep out people that are completely lazy. But it's also achievable, because what happens is if you start to put sort of benchmarks, the people in charge will just skew those benchmarks to benefit themselves anyways. So all of a sudden people like me won't be allowed to vote. If men could be drafted, ought not they get additional privileges? Well, women can be too now. No. I do agree that there is biological differences and we should have societal differences, but when it comes to legality, matters of a legal nature, I think that we should seek to avoid those as much as possible. So, if a woman punches a guy in the face, it's assault. I don't think that just because men could be drafted and fight in the front lines and women shouldn't be, that means that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. It's a pain to get an ID in Kentucky. I would be for making it easier to get IDs all around. I could call into the debate on the Crucible if I like now or when they have it. Yeah, I'll call in when they have their debate, sure. I don't think he's streaming now, is he? You know, I don't get shit for notifications for the Crucible, which is garbage. Oh, Rachel's going to be on Timcast? Good for her. Pretty cool. It's tomorrow. Wilson's busy, man. Good for them. How about this? In person with ID voting, but instead of voting day, it's voting weekend. That would probably be okay. Now understand, voting's on Tuesdays. I work block shifts. Either Saturday through Wednesday or Sunday through Wednesday. So every voting day, I work. Every single one. Now, normally, I take my clients with me and go ahead and go vote. But, alright, anything else? Any stupid drama shit anyone wants to cover? Or anything political that I've missed today? Yeah, Andrew's been killing it. And that's great. He's really hardworking. He deserves it. So. Sucks I didn't get the guy that said he'd set up a debate the next week. Little geek guy with glasses takes money from Progressive Victory. Wick. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is the assassination attempt happened. I know that Elder Drazi guy still reached out to me and he wants to debate COVID one of these days, which is fine. I can do it now, right? If he was on right now, I would say, fuck it, let's go. But it feels like the news cycle's going so fast. I don't know that going back and debating vaccines is what people are interested in now, but debate's debate. I guess I would do it. And the same with Wick. Yeah, the whatever's not my cup of tea. I'll be honest. It's not something that I watch. It's not something that I would be good on. It's just, But, to each their own. Some people like Jerry Springer. I used to watch Jerry Springer. So, And it certainly increased the visibility of Andrew, which is great. So, you think I'd be great on whatever? I don't. I'm not going to yell at people. I'll just be like, yeah, you shouldn't do OnlyFans. It's really bad. You're going to regret it someday. That's it. That'd be my hot take.
will rate our looks, I'd be like, I'm not going to. I have a wife. It's good enough for me. I'm not interested in rating your looks. Sorry. It wouldn't be that entertaining. I think they're cowards. They're just cowards that don't want pushback. That's why they hide from the debate so often, refuse to engage. They just want to push lies to their viewers. Yeah, that's certainly true. I wouldn't yell at the progressive women. Most of them are young and naive. I mean, again, I yell at people like talking in the sphere of debating topics, not like your life, how you live your life. I try to stay out of the giving people life advice. I give people very benign advice. I think benign's not the right word. I think the life advice I give people is good, but I try to stay in my lane on that. My life advice is just like, there's more important shit than being terminally online. Like, there are people that love you. And when shit gets hairy online, when politics seems crazy or culture seems crazy, those things are more important. Your relationship with God's more important. Your relationship with your wife and your kids are more important. Or with your parents are more important. That's it. It's not some, not some genius level take or anything. But I try to, what am I going to, like, if I go on Fresh and Fit, what am I going to be like? This is how to live your life. Like, if I was them, I'd be like, why don't you lose some weight, Tubby? Like, yeah, fair enough. So it's like, Yeah, I'll talk about this for a minute. I've reached out to Jimmy Dore, I've reached out to Lauren Southern, reached out to Sitchin Adam, reached out to Dave Smith. I never get any sort of return ever. At all. Ever. It took me forever to get through to Tim Pool, and that was only because Ian Crossland noticed me. So I don't know what it is about me. Reached out to Willie Mack. He didn't respond. So I don't know. I have theories, but I'm not going to divulge them. Most of it is just, particularly those bigger names like Jimmy Dore, Dave Smith, I have no way to get in touch with them other than to publicly tag them on a tweet or to direct message them through Twitter, and I never get any response. So, they probably, their DMs are probably packed, so, Yeah, I know, I'm probably not aggressive. Well, Willie mentioned me in a tweet and said, after that Spaces and hearing Rob Knorr's defense of the alternate electors, I think Destiny's right. And I was like, well, I think you're misrepresenting my take. I'd love to talk to you about it. No response. So, I'll be honest, I think some of the creators in the right-wing space don't want someone like me because a lot of it is sort of like, they view it as like, I think, maybe I'm wrong about this, I don't know, like there's only so many viewers, and if I share my viewers with someone else who has similar beliefs as me, then maybe my viewers will go over there. I don't really look at it that way, but whatever. Thanks, EOD, I appreciate it, man. I try not to be like that. I hope I'm never like that. Now, I do understand, particularly bigger streamers, if I had to choose between me or, Dave Smith, I'd probably take Dave Smith. You have more eyeballs, right? Yeah, so I get that. But, I don't know. I guess I just really don't give a shit at the end of the day. I don't. Sometimes I wonder if I ever do want to get big. I don't know that I do. Like, I don't know if people understand how much I love my life. Like, sometimes streaming's a pain in the ass. I don't know that I want to get huge. I think I would like it, but I don't know. I don't know. So it's like, I don't know. What am I supposed to do? Keep, hey, you want to talk to me? Hey, you want to talk to me? I messaged you yesterday. You want to talk to me? Hey, I saw someone else that said something I liked. You want to talk to me? Like, am I going to do that every day? Like, once a month or something, I'll reach out to these people and be like, hey, I saw you mention blah, blah, blah. Love to come on the show and talk about it. No response. Okay. That's it. I'm not going to keep inundating people. It's like, okay. Do what you can. That's that. Move forward. I don't know. Maybe my impression, I think that I have deficiencies for sure. I think that I don't stream consistently enough. I think that my streams are set up as such that it's difficult to be accessible to people. A lot of people like really short videos. I'm super wordy, and I do long form streams as my specialty and do debates and shit that some people aren't into. Get that. Totally get that. My production values suck ass. Totally get that. Like, I'm not good at like the camera, the mic type stuff. It's all that stuff. I'm a total idiot when it comes to that. I'm terrible at advertising myself. Like, absolutely wretched. I get that. I don't know how to manipulate the algorithms, like with tags and titles and shit. I get that. So there's a lot going against me. But I think I'm a pretty damn good right-wing debater. I think I'm one of the best I've seen. And oftentimes when I see bigger streamers get on these, like Lauren Southern's a bigger streamer than me. I'm not trying to talk shit on Lauren, but when Destiny goes on and does that space on X, and she's the co-host of it, they're getting blown the fuck out. Like, blown out. Blown out. Like, bad. Like, they don't even know the first thing about any of the stuff that Destiny's talking about. Did I see your message above? No, conservative carnage. Now he's more focused on his new book he's writing, but Rob Scott Horton said he'd have you on. You just need to email and message him. Okay. So, I mean, I go on there and I just get all these messages like, great job. Yeah, finally someone. But it doesn't parlay into anything. What do I think of Andrew Wilson? I think he's the exception. I think Andrew's done, other than like the guy who volunteers to help edit for me, Black Elk, my wife, and maybe my former producer, Aftershock, Andrew Wilson's done more for my show than anyone. Andrew is sort of the opposite of everyone that you see. Everyone's like pretending to be a nice person on camera, and then, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are pricks behind the scene. And Andrew comes off where he tries to have this aggressive prick-like personality, but actually he's like one of the nicest dudes in the world behind the scenes. So I really like Andrew. I have nothing negative to say about Andrew. Thank you, Armas. I appreciate it. And my channel, I think the two big areas that grow my channel are when I debate someone like Destiny, because I get viewership on me there, and then when I go on the Crucible, and I'm with Andrew Wilson. Those are the two areas where I'm actually able to go on a platform where there's thousands of people watching, as opposed to 100. And so, well, it's not a matter of Zen, of being nice to Lauren. That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to be rude to her. I don't mind her personal. I don't really give a shit about her personal relationships, just like everyone else. I don't care to even look into it. Don't give a shit about that. I just thought she's someone who's like sort of moderate conservative, and it'd be interesting to go on the show to reach a different audience and kind of talk about the things I talk about. And I thought as someone who sort of is trying to push back against Destiny, maybe it would be good for me to go on her show and be like, well, here's some things to consider. But maybe she's very busy or whatever. I messaged, she messaged back, was like, what's up? And then I kind of outlined what I thought would be a cool idea, and, you know, maybe just busy, no time to respond, whatever. All I'm saying is, it's hard to, like, it's difficult to evaluate yourself. I think sometimes people have a lower opinion of themselves than actual what's going on. Sometimes they have a higher opinion. So I don't know. I think I'm pretty fucking good, at least at that aspect of debating, but I don't know. I would debate JF. Look, JF has some views that I certainly disagree with. The only time I've debated JF was basically on sort of white nationalism type stuff, which I certainly disagree with him. But I think JF's cordial. I think he's a very intelligent guy. My guess is JF's IQ is way higher than me. But yeah, I would debate him on Trump. Sure. Have I watched Steve Turley and the Duran? No, I've never heard of them. Think I'll be at 10K by January? Thanks, AB. That's cool. That'd be nice. I've been growing. Certainly true. But again, it's not that important. On the scale of shit in my life, I think the number one reason I want to grow is to help move the needle, to get my message out there. But certainly I want to grow because I'm a conceited prick. And that's true too. I didn't see her new video on Project 2025. Yeah, it's all right though. No one owes me shit. To be honest, no one owes me anything. So I don't get upset about it. I just say, okay. No, Phil Labonte wasn't there when I was there. From All That Remains. Do I think Synth's better than Destiny? No, I think Destiny's a better debater than Synth. Synth's similar. He's aggressive like Destiny, and he's able to think on his feet and sort of pivot. But no, I don't think he's as good as Destiny. Yeah, I think YouTube was definitely, with political content, was more conservative in 2015, 2016. And I think once you see the government start pushing with like the Twitter files and shit like that, they're also pushing Google and YouTube. And then I think you see a switch start to occur where all of these online spaces, when it comes to politics, at least in the debate sphere, the left wing is way bigger. Plus the audience on places like YouTube and Twitch are going to be younger, which predominantly are going to be more left wing. So, you mentioned him the other day, the white nationalist ago. You said you would fear debating. Jared Taylor. He's brilliant, very smart dude. Jared Taylor's a very smart dude. JF's smart too, man. JF's no joke. That'd be a good debate. Smart guy. Super weird, but that's okay. I'm super weird too. So, and sometimes weird's good. Sometimes you're weird because you're smarter than everyone around. But I still disagree with him on sort of a lot of his opinions on race and what we should do about it. But yeah, I would debate JF. Set it up. Tell Andrew. Set it up in the Crucible. Rob versus JF. I thought that I had a fucking spike the ball moment on JF. JF made the argument that basically I would be a cuck because I'm not concerned about my race, and so therefore I would leave other people sleep with my wife, which I think that intuitively is exactly backwards. Because he's looking at it through a concept of procreation and your genes being passed on. But if I don't care about my race, I can still care about my genetics as a whole. In other words, I care about me, the individual, not necessarily my racial lineage. So it doesn't mean I would be a cop or want someone else to impregnate my wife. But if you're someone that says, I place above value everything my European ancestry, and you're only 98.3% European, wouldn't that mean that intuitively someone who has more European ancestry than you would cheer on to impregnate your wife? And I don't think he has an answer to that. And he's the one who brought up me being a cuck, so it wasn't like I started that shit. And he doesn't really have an answer. Any thoughts about Nick Fuentes? I haven't watched a lot of Fuentes content. I'll start by saying this. You hear things that he's a Nazi or Nazi sympathizer. I don't know any of that shit's true, because I know that people smear people like that. So I don't know. Now, is directionally that's what's going on? That I don't know. I don't know. Probably somewhere. I don't think he's a Nazi, but probably he has beliefs like questions the Holocaust, things like that. I don't know. I think that you could question those sorts of things, that doesn't make you a shitty person. But I don't know enough. You can be a shitty person to do that, but you can say that about anything. So I don't know that Nick's a shitty person or not. I don't know. I just don't know him that well. From what I've seen, I think he's charismatic. I think that he is intelligent. I think that he's a very good debater. He's probably unfairly maligned. And he has a lot of people that are sort of orbiters that are absolute shit. That are garbage. And I think that perceptually may hurt him. So I think that he's articulate and funny and charming, and so can make certain arguments that when you see sort of these ham-fisted orbiters of his that aren't that intelligent try to do similar things, they come off as just petulant children that are trying to be edgy, and it's not funny. So, but I would debate Nick. I don't know exactly what we would debate. I think that he's been sort of against Trump. I would debate him on Trump. That's fine. He's a Fed plant. Maybe he is. I don't know. But I don't think I would be friends with Nick Fuentes or anything like that. But again, I don't know. I can't tell you what his beliefs are. Angie versus Jordan Peterson. Yeah, Jordan Peterson to me is a more... Sometimes the less you know about someone, the better. Like, think of people we think of great thinkers. Like, think of Albert Einstein had Twitter. And you're like, wow, what this genius thinker. And then he's just out there, like, ranting and raving at anonymous trolls. You may be like, oh, I think that's some thoughts on Pisco. Oh, already sort of went through this. I think Pisco's a smart guy, and I think he's good at looking at legal matters. And I think that makes him a fun oppositional opponent to me, because my strong suit is talking about corruption. And inevitably, you're going to get into matters of the law when talking about corruption. So I think that makes him a good foil on those topics. And as a lawyer, he has an advantage against me in sort of knowing the jargon and knowing sort of the normal ways that things operate. That doesn't mean he's right. I think that I beat him almost every time I debate him. But it does make for an interesting juxtaposition, and I actually enjoy talking to him. I think that he is partisan beyond recognition, to the point where he will clown himself and say just blatantly bullshit things that he knows is untrue, because he sees a greater goal, that Trump is this great evil and the ends will always justify the means. And so you could blatantly lie and manipulate and convince yourself that things that are obviously not as they seem are as they seem. And I think he engages in a lot of unscrupulous and ethical sort of tactics and behavior, such as on X, how instead of just responding to someone on X, he'll repost it, and then he'll create like 7 repost chains so that his audience is primarily only seeing his post and not the response to them. And that's the sign of someone who's not actually interested in having a fair, balanced discussion, but sort of trying to skew things like that. But ultimately, I don't dislike Pisco. I wish him well. He's one of the people I like talking to. But yeah, I mean, I think the Jabal Bowman thing definitely illustrates exactly who he is. When pushed in a corner, he is so bad faith that he'll literally say words that mean the opposite of what they do to justify sort of the double standard. And I think that sometimes, Solette says, just jumped on, do you see the Dems sticking with Harris? If yes, what are the Trump's chances of winning? Okay, I'll talk about that in a second. I think Pisco also needs to learn to be reciprocal with his energy. So if Pisco comes on and, like, if he jumped on right now and started talking to me, he's like, fuck you, blah, 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 and we start going back and forth, there's no problem with that. Because we've had very polite conversations. We've had conversations when we're yelling at each other. And I think that he understands that I got thick skin. I'm not going to mind. No problem. So because of that past arguments we've had, if he jumps on and it's super heated, that's no problem. But one of the problems is he doesn't realize like how like much of an asshole he looks like to people that he's never really had interactions with, where he's just like, fuck you, coward, blah, 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 blah. Like when he's posting stuff like that on X, or he's just flipping out like the first time. He doesn't realize how much of an asshole that makes him seem like. And I think that eventually that'll catch up to him, and that will cost him maybe some interactions that he elsewise would have had. He's capable of having polite interactions. And certainly, I'm not going to sit here and criticize people for being aggressive, because I could get aggressive. But I really do try to reciprocate the energy that's given to me. And I think a lot of times Pisco just jumps in with that right out of the gate. And I think that what happens is you sort of, people just say, okay. Like that's like Destiny. With Destiny come out with the edgy shit, oh, I'm glad this firefighter, or, haha, I'm going to make fun of this firefighter for dying. That's fine. But that does mean that there's a certain segment of sort of more mainstream people that are just going to be like, fuck you, I don't want to talk to you. Which is fine. Maybe that's fine with Destiny. Maybe that's fine with Pisco. But I can see how it could be very abrasive. Me, on the other hand, I try to be charming and funny. And then if I run into someone like Brianna Wu that wants to be an asshole the whole time, then I'll be an asshole. But I really do try to be someone that the audience, even if they hate what I'm saying, are like, it's worth having on, worth listening to, worth having a conversation with. We can't get into this. I'm sorry, what were you saying, Tristan? Oh, you were having a conversation with someone else. Oh. JC for life. Sorry I'm missing some of these chats. It says, not too much on us, buddy. a young black, if you will, technically Creole American young woman who's right wing. Well, thanks for watching the show. Awesome. Yeah, I think conservatism and right wing and populism and minarchism or libertarian adjacency, I think those beliefs are best for everyone, not a particular ethnicity, gender, etc. And so my message is always, you don't have to change what you believe. You just have to be able to talk in ways that different groups of people understand about your authentic beliefs. So it's one of the things I try to tell the Republican Party in Pennsylvania here all the time. I've told the story many times when I was volunteering for the Trump campaign in Pennsylvania. And they offered me this job to be sort of the head person in the county. And so I had to sit in on this call with Trump's team. When I say that, I don't mean like Donald Trump. I mean like I talked to someone who was in charge of like 5 counties in Pennsylvania. So it wasn't like someone high up the food chain. And I sat in on this call with 2 or 3 other people they were considering, and they went through spiel and they asked if we had questions. I said, what are we doing to reach out to people that traditionally don't vote Republican? They said, like who? I said, young people, inner city people, single mothers. And I shit you not, what they told me on the phone was, oh, we're not going after them, we're going after low-hanging fruit. I said, on the phone, my buddy Carlos was there, he could back this up. I said, yeah, you've lost Pennsylvania. That's what I told him. If I lived in Philadelphia here, and I was a black guy, and I see unique problems in my community, and the Democrats have shitty ideas, and every year the Democrats win, and they don't do shit to help my community, but the Republicans refuse to even talk to me, I'll probably vote Democrat. So Republicans, you don't have to change your message. You don't have to pander to black people or young people or women. You just have to be able to articulate to them why your values and what you're pushing for would be beneficial to them as well. For example, law and order. Again, you remember that Tupac interview where he's like, people falsely assume in the inner city that we don't care about that shit, but moms still want their kids to be safe. Out of control crime's a problem that we're concerned with too. Exactly. Yeah, I saw the meme. We talked about this yesterday, the meme that Sitch put up. So the meme that Sitch put up is basically this. The argument he's making is, well, Republicans wanted Biden to drop out, and now he did, now they're calling it a coup. We talked about this at great length yesterday. Suffice it to say, one, the meme doesn't make sense because Biden, if he's not capable, the argument Republicans were making was he's not fit to be president. So him not running again is different than him not being president. He should step down as president. If they would have declared the 25th Amendment, then I would say, okay, that's not a coup. They legitimately are saying this guy's not fit to be president. That would have been one thing. That's not what they did. The other thing is that they gaslit people for years. They knew that Biden's cognitive decline was this significant, and yet they gaslit people so they believed that that wasn't the case, then had basically a primary that wasn't a primary that all but ensured that Joe Biden was the candidate, knowing full well that he had these problems that they were fully prepared to keep lying about until the election. Then, when they got egg on their face because Biden comes out in the debate and shows the whole world just how bad he is, they now set up the process so the voters of the Democratic Party don't even have a voice. That's why it's a coup. That's why his meme's stupid. Go ahead, EOD. You have a question? There's not that much time left in his presidency. Let's say China did want to invade Taiwan. This would be a pretty good time, don't you think? Yeah, I think racially, JC, one of the things for me that I think is a solid argument is we're not going to treat you as a race. We're going to treat you as an individual. We're not going to pander you as a black person. We're going to say, you're a unique person. You have a unique situation. We believe in individuality. We don't believe in this sort of collective sin or collective grievance. How do the Democrats get so up in arms about January 6th when they literally forced their own nominee out? Yeah, you know the answer. Because they never gave a shit.
about democracy. They didn't give a shit in 2016. They didn't give a shit in 2020. Remember, in 2016, they changed their process to have superdelegates that could just pick whatever they wanted. Does that sound democratic? Do I think most conservatives care more about culture than policy? That's a difficult question. They should, because I think policy is downstream of culture. But I don't know. Like, most conservatives are probably staunchly pro-life. So they would say, we want policy to eliminate abortion. But they probably spend more time talking about culture. Have I read the Podesta Mail WikiLeaks? A long time ago. Most of them. Yeah, I mean, JC, to be totally honest, though, I don't mind people banding together and being tribal on certain areas. My entire reason for my channel was that I wanted to be a person that was talking about issues that affect rural Americans. Now, I don't give a shit about skin color. I'm not even talking about your religious beliefs. I'm not even talking about your sexual orientation. I see in my area of the world, in rural Pennsylvania, that there are a lot of people struggling, and there are unique problems to this area, and no one gives a shit. So that was my impetus for wanting to get involved in politics and to start streaming. So I'd be a hypocrite if I said, if a bunch of black people in the inner city say, we want to talk about black issues, okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem. We're all going to group ourselves in some way. That's fine. But to me, even though I'm talking about issues as a rural American or rural Pennsylvanian, everybody treats me as an individual. But that's not true of black people. No one's ever going to say, oh, you're not acting very rural, Rob, if I vote a certain way. But they will say that if you're black. Oh, you're not voting like a black person's supposed to. What the fuck does that mean? What are you talking about? It's insulting. And the bigotry of low expectations of people of color I find to be grotesque. Oh, you're not supposed to think for yourself. You have black community leaders that'll think for you. What? Imagine that. Imagine, like, as a white person, it's unfathomable. Oh, this person's speaking for white people. What are you talking about? Shut your mouth. Hey, AKA, no spamming emojis. I don't mind here and there, but do I think there are more schisms and or differing views within the party on the right than on the left? Yeah, I do. The left's pretty good at staying lockstep. Turns out when you vote for the president, you're also implicitly voting for the VP also. That's not true. It is true in the literal sense, but that doesn't mean if the presidential nominee drops out that you're picking the VP. First off, he didn't announce who his VP... No, okay, that's a dumb argument. I won't say that. It was implied that Kamala would be the VP. See, let's say this. Let's say that argument's true. You say, okay, what if they decide that Kamala's losing in the polls and they decide to remove her by the time of the convention? Then what? Then would you admit it's a coup? Would you say, oh, we all implicitly voted for the VP? Is that what you would say? I bet not. I bet you would say, well, the Democrats have the right to decide their candidate any way they want. Biden's campaign funds are all, as far as my understanding is, I know that Trump's team's filing sort of legal objections, but my understanding is basically that because it was Biden-Harris ticket, that Harris is still allowed to have those funds. All right, folks. So here's the deal. Very excited. I'm sorry, someone thought I looked a little morose or down today. I'm actually very excited. As I was doing this, my wife texted me and we got a new refrigerator for our garage. Hurrah! Capri Suns for everyone. So, and I get to go home tomorrow and I get to see my wife and son.
I don't know that I'll stream tomorrow night. Thursday, it's going to be an early stream at 5 p.m. Eastern. I think I'm going to be streaming with John Ward. So that should be fun. I'm going to try to do some more. John Ward, great streamer. He's here in Pennsylvania. He's trying to get sort of a collaboration of streamers in Pennsylvania, conservative streamers in Pennsylvania. Be happy to work with that. I think he's maybe out east a little further than me, but that's okay. So it should be a lot of fun. So that's going to be 5 p.m. Now, I'm not sure it's going to be John or if it's going to be one of the people he works with that I'll be doing the stream with. But that should be Thursday. P.F. Jung, I think I'm streaming with Sunday. This coming Sunday. And then there's another person that I'm supposed to be doing a show with. I'll have to check and see what that is. So maybe I'll take tomorrow off and hang out with my wife and son. Do I plan to stream Andrew vs. Destiny debate and offer commentary? I'll probably do that at some point. I probably will. I did offer to sort of work with Andrew in preparation if he would like. But I know him and Rachel have been extremely busy, so I don't know exactly what they have going on. But if he would like some preparation, suggestions on arguments that he's likely to hear, I would be willing to help with that. But okay. He's prepping tonight. Well, I can't stay up that late. It's already 10 o'clock. So, but I'm excited. I get to go home tomorrow. Here's the thing. I had this birthday party. It was a lot of fun. It really was. Saw a lot of people. Great times. But one thing I will say, I felt like I haven't had a day with just my wife and my son for quite a while. And so it's going to be real nice tomorrow when I get off work around 2 o'clock to just me, Hank, Courtney. Watch some movies, maybe go to the playground, play in the bounce house outside. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very much looking forward to it. Can't wait. And then Thursday, I got some doctor stuff. I got to take care of this, like physical therapy for my back. I got this stream at 5. And then I've probably got some yard work to do. But that'll be a day spending a lot of time with my wife and son too. So I'm very excited for just some family time here coming up. Makes me happy. That's what I like to do the most. So you'll see me Thursday, and then I might jump on tomorrow night if Hank and Courtney fall asleep and I'm still awake. Maybe you'll see me jump on, or who knows? The way this news cycle goes, I'll tell my wife I'm not streaming tonight, and then it's like, oh, Biden just dropped out. Well, shit, I should probably stream. Or there was an attempt on the former president's life. I should probably stream. Like shit like that. If some crazy news thing hits like that, I feel like you want to give your thoughts initially, so I'm going to spend all my time. Maybe I'll just set my computer down in the garage and I'll just stream from the garage from now on. How's that sound? Got a fridge down there now, so. All right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of you. Look forward to seeing you. Oops, sorry. Checking something. All soon? Yeah, God forbid Biden passes, I'd probably do stream, Hey, Rob, what happened? Thought you couldn't stream from work anymore. I don't know. All right, we'll talk to you all soon. As always, have a good one.